may I get a roll call, please?
Andrea Jordan,
Here.
Aaron Rashba,
Here.
Shaquille Ali,
Here.
Eileen Policarpio.
Here.
Anthony Sujisaka.
Here. Thank you very much. All right, and so now we move on to item 3, Pledge of Allegiance, and I will ask Mr. Marquez Valenti if he can please lead us in the pledge. Not for this one.
They're all getting ready for their photos.
Thank you, Mr. Marquez Valenti. All right, we move to item 4, approval of the agenda. The administration recommends approval of the agenda. If there are any items to amend, otherwise I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, we move on to item 5, special presentations, art fair. Ms. Padma Deskachari, sorry, thank you. Art fair coordinator and vice principal of Thomas R. Parlton Middle School will present on the art fair held on April 28th, 2026.
Hello, good evening, school board, cabinet, and the JCYC community. Thank you for being here, and I'm super happy to present the JESD Art Fair that took place at TRP Gym on April 28th. And I'm one of the district coordinators, and I worked very closely with the other district coordinator, Mrs. Nuala O'Sullivan-Haley, who's the Garden Village principal. So what's the purpose behind doing this art fair? The main idea is to promote inclusivity. So basically allowing students to express all kinds of art in their creativity and imagination. So it's not only visual arts that were presented in 2D and 3D, but also like performing arts, which had the band and the dances as well from multiple schools. So in the pictures and videos that it'll be followed after the slide, you can see all the different forms of expression that came across, spanning through different cultures and promoting a lot of student voice and equity. So here is a video that I compiled with art from each school represented. It was such a pleasure to put all the pieces up, and it was such an inspiration for all of us. And then we have the JESD band. So this is the all-star from all middle schools. And then from Ben Franklin, the mariachi band. Oops. Sorry, not this one. I don't know. Okay. Everything is playing now. Sorry, I rehearsed it many times. You're fine. Okay, that's the mariachi, at least. And that's the Harmony Project violin from SBA, Woodrow Wilson, and TRP. And After that, we have the dance performances from TRP and Ben Franklin Middle Schools. And then that's from Ben Franklin. And this is also one of the other highlights that I wanted to talk about. One school, Woodrow-Wilson, every year they turn in poetry. That's another form of expression that we want to encourage. So this is fifth grade students. Originally, they write it in Spanish, and it shows like the spirit, their fearless spirit, and how inspiring it is. So this is, they talk about like how they are immigrants, they are legal immigrants, but they are really trying to really face the discrimination against their country, their color, skin color, the language that they speak, but they are fearless, and then they are ready to, walk bravely and still be part of America and find their rightful place in this country. So there were like over 20 spoken word poems that just from that class, originally written in Spanish and translated by the teacher in English, which I thought is a wonderful representation. And we had this student read out the poem in Spanish, and then the teacher was translating in English after every sentence. So it was very, very inspiring, and I wanted to share that. And that's pretty much it. I really thank the district for giving us the opportunity to do this. And the district staff has been very supportive. We got a whole bunch of like new display boards, which was super convenient. And then the district maintenance helped set up the boards, even take down the art pieces. And thank you to my fellow art coordinator, Mrs. O'Sullivan Haley, who was like, we worked so together well to collaborate with all the artists. And then staff from different schools came and helped put up the art and made this event a huge success. And thank you. So many people turned out to be there in the program. Thank you all for your support.
Excellent. Thank you for that presentation. So before you leave, we may have questions or comments for you. And then this time, I will start on my left.
Thank you for the recap. It was a nice reminder. I don't know what I was expecting. It was my first one, and I forget that art is more than drawings on paper or visual displays of,
Exactly.
drawing abilities. And so this reminded me, like, art is many things. Art is dance. Art is poetry. And that poem, like, I can't believe a fifth grader did that. There's so much emotion in reading that, and I'm like, man, like, that fifth grader is really talented. Like, whoever, that's amazing that much emotion come out to it and can be said so beautifully in both languages, like it really means something. So kudos to the spoken word, kudos to the dances. I love seeing how packed, I couldn't believe how packed it was. I went because my kid got it. My kid's in TK. She got a little art one. It was a cute little beaded frame, but it was all the way, and even just re-seeing some of that art. Like, we have some super talented kids, and I think growing up, art wasn't an option really. Like, oh, it's just a dreamer's dream, or that's a talent that just kind of is like playtime, not for real time. And I think if anything, it showed that art can take people many, many places and successful places where they're happy doing what they do and not because they feel the need to. So thank you for showing the kids and for showing us just how much talent is in our community. It was amazing.
Thank you for the kind comments. It was very heartwarming to even do the whole thing. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation, and it was such an uplifting evening, to be there. I love your theme of inclusivity, and that you have made a space for students at our district to share their artwork, whatever form that they wish to. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, you've led this multiple years now. Thank you, and I'm just wondering what inspires you to step forward and work within the arts.
So I'm an artist also. So I've tried like several forms of art. So when they said like this will be your adjunct duty because like you're TRP vice principal, I'm like, okay, I'm super happy to do that. And it's just like, this is just my second year doing this. And thank you to Sandy's idea. She said like, we should present it to the board just to see like all the things that's happening. So that was a wonderful idea. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. I think just the inspiration I get from like surfacing all these creativity and imagination from the students, bringing it to the outside world, and then presenting it to the board so it's even more reachable, has made it very, it's very fruitful. And I want to keep doing that. It's just like very satisfying. If I could encourage that, like, not everybody can speak, not everybody can dance, but everybody can do some form or the other of expression, which what we want to showcase.
Thank you again for all your work on this.
Thank you.
I echo my fellow board trustee sentiments. I thought it was a great event. I have actually been to that event. I don't know, my oldest is now in college, so since whenever she was in kindergarten, and every time I've ever gone, it's always been just so beautiful. And then obviously this year was just as beautiful with, different children and different artwork. I have a question, and I don't know if you can answer it or maybe Superintendent McCullough can. I don't know if we've ever thought of encouraging the students to showcase their art even beyond our doors and our platform. I know the San Mateo County Fair wants to see art from the community as well, and they can actually get prizes and they can get their art shown not just in Daly City but in the county. And so if we have not done that, it would be, in my eyes, a good idea to maybe recommend or at least send something out to say, hey, you can also use this art elsewhere, if we haven't thought of that.
That's an amazing idea. So, like, I've been to the county office several times, and I've seen all the beautiful art displayed with all those different school names. I've always thought about from our district, we should do more. Tomorrow also, I'm going to the county office for another presentation, but I'm going to talk about this, and then we can connect. Yeah.
No
Thank you for that. Yeah. No, these kids are so talented, everybody. It's just, we should spread the word.
All right, are there any other questions? I just have a couple questions. That's why I want to make sure I didn't overspeak if anyone else had any. I had a couple questions just about, one of them is about other forms of art, such as digital art and performing art. Like, are those planning on being included? I know our district has somewhat tried in the past to get performing art and just hasn't happened. So any plans for those arts?
Right, digital art. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good thing. Maybe we could expand that for next year, and we should think about how we will present it. We can just have like a little iPad with just like a slideshow with the digital art as well. So I can make a note of that. Thank you.
And then, I guess this is actually not much of a question, but I'm also wondering if, kind of on your notes similarly, but the library systems, some of the libraries actually have showcases for community artists. So my mom, who's also a substitute teacher here, is actually an artist outside of work in her retirement. And so she actually had her art showcased at the Redwood City Library, which is farther. But I wonder if our local libraries would showcase our students' art. So that'd be kind of a cool opportunity to see if we could get them on board with us.
Yeah, we'll look into that as well, but I just wanted to point out that several of our schools do performing arts, but they perform at the school site. So it's not, it would make this event a lot longer, because usually those are longer performances. So we do have performance art. And then it also, if it's as an elective, we don't really have a performing arts elective yet. But that's something that we can look into with Prop 28 money.
Sounds great. Again, thank you. And then I have no more questions. Thank you very much, Ms. Jessica Chari.
Thank you for all your comments. Thank you.
All right, we move on to item 6A, board member acknowledgements and commendations, and this time I'll start on my right.
I have no comments.
I know this is a very busy time of year. Speaking of performing arts, I did get the opportunity to attend a performance at Fernando Rivera that was part of the Kidstock program. And I know that Kidstock is not the only nonprofit that is partnering with our district to put on plays at the end of the year. I've attended athletic events, and I know that there is just a ton going on. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of the teachers at the schools and staff who are helping to host these events. I want to thank the parents for stepping in and volunteering and being there. And just wanted to wish everybody a really successful end of the school year now that we're in the home stretch, and a great summer since we will be meeting next in the summertime. Thank you.
All right, and I just wanted to echo my fellow board trustee sentiments and then also say congratulations to the graduates. We know someone up here is going to be speaking at some of them. We just are still deciding on who. But for everybody who will not be there, we want to wish our congratulations to all of our, especially our middle school students moving on from our district. And then also thanks to all of our employees for this whole year. You know, this has been a rough year, so thanks for sticking with us, and we look forward to seeing you, hopefully all of you, in the next year. All right, we move on to item 6B, superintendent comments. Superintendent Kulik, it's yours.
Yes, good evening. I just want to thank Ms. Jessica Chari for her facilitation with Ms. Nuala O'Sullivan-Haley for the Art Festival. They did a fantastic job. And I appreciate all the work of all the art teachers. We have our art teachers, our band teachers, all, they put a lot of work in with the students, and the students did amazing work. And so I was really proud to see that. And it was a huge, probably one of our biggest turnouts at one of our district events. So that's always a popular one. I just want to remind our middle school families that middle school open house is tomorrow night. So check with your school site for the times. It's usually between 5 and 7. And then last week was elementary school open house, and so our cabinet team went out to all the different school sites and saw the displays and a lot of the excitement for the end of the year. Another excitement or celebration was our employee recognition last week. We held it for the first time at Thomas R. Policida's MUR, which we want to thank them for hosting. And also Tanya Santa Cruz was the lead in coordinating that event with a lot of district staff. And our MC, Mr. Brent Marquez Valenti, did an amazing job. And our DJ, Luisa Santos, she DJ'd, made it a really fun event. And we actually, just to share, we received an email from a long-term teacher who said, in my 28 years in JESD, this is the best staff appreciation event we've ever had. So I thought that was very telling of the sentiment, and it was a great event. And so we've already thought about how do we make it even better for next year. So we want to thank everyone who attended. We really appreciate that. Next Tuesday is our Youth Cinema Project premiere for the 4 schools that participate. So Woodrow Wilson, MP Brown, JFK, and George Washington. So that will be at Westmore. It's invite only for families, but board members, you are always welcome to come. I believe it starts at 6 p.m., but I will confirm that with everyone. And then as President Sujisaka said, we have our 8th grade promotion ceremonies next Thursday and Friday at the various middle schools and our K-8 school. And so I'm looking forward to congratulating all of our 8th graders as they go on to high school and beyond. And then just as a reminder, Camp Jeff starts June 15th and it goes through July 17th. So families that have signed up for Camp Jeff at our schools at JFK and Daniel Webster, that's where those will be housed. And then also, I sent out the newsletter today and I realized I put in the last day of school is a minimum day, but it's actually not. It's an early release day. So the 1:05 p.m. dismissal for both the 4th and the 5th. So that Thursday and Friday. And so yeah, next week school's out, and then we hope everyone has a safe, happy, healthy summer. We will be meeting on the 10th afterwards, but we want to make sure all families know that we thank them for all their support this year, and we will make next year even better. So thank you.
I just turned off my mic. Thank you for this update, Superintendent Mikulik. All right, we move on to item 6C, persons wishing to address the board. Ms. Covere, are there any speaker cards?
There are none.
There are none. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment on or address the board on any issue that is that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is usually 2 minutes, and we will close public comment at 7:19 p.m. And we will move on to item 7, consent agenda. The administration recommends the approval of the following starred consent agenda items. Are we any need to be removed? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by trustee Jordan and a second by trustee Ali. This is a voice vote, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, and we are moving ahead to item 8A. 8A, Budget and Facilities Superintendent Advisory Committee recommendations and budget updates. Ms. Superintendent, Sandy McCulloch, Superintendent, will present budget considerations and recommendations from the Budget and Facilities Superintendent Advisory Committee. All right, Superintendent McCullough, the floor is yours.
Yes, so I'm timing myself.
You're fine. We'll tell you if you
Tell
go
me,
over.
I can't
We'll
see
do
it. So last year, we formed this committee, the Superintendent Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee. It is a subcommittee of the board, the Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee. And so our two trustees are Shaquille Ali and Aaron Roshbar are on this committee, and we expanded it to invite the community. And so we had a purpose of recommending to me by the spring of this year items regarding the budget, programs, and facilities so that we have long-term sustainability and student success. And then what I was going to do is tonight present to you all some of the recommendations and mainly considerations that we were looking at. We started meeting in September. We met the first Wednesday of every month. We did not meet in December, but we met all the way through April 1st. And on April 1st, we actually worked through this slideshow as well as some of the recommendations and considerations. And we actually have 4 committee members here tonight as well. So I appreciate them attending with us, and we'll recognize them after. So here are all the members. As you can see, we identified parents as well as American Federation of Teachers, which is our teachers union, as well as CSEA, Classified School Employee Association. And we had 34 parents, I believe, or 34 community members or members of the committee. And we had a 69% average attendance rate, which was pretty good. And then, as I mentioned, we had our trustees, and we also had our chief business official, our assistant superintendent of business services, Josie Peterson, with us at every meeting. And this was facilitated by a contracted service with Lynette Hodson of School Services of California, so that we could also be kind of participants and have her lead the work so that it was transparent and a neutral voice. And actually, trustee Eileen Policarpio, before she became on the board, attended the first meeting, but then had to recuse herself. So we do appreciate your one meeting service. So this was led through, as I said, School Services of California with Lynette Hodson, and we focused on having a collaborative inquiry-based approach. We wanted to have transparency in regarding our district finances, getting input from our committee, understanding the data and information, and then coming to a recommendation to me, which would then also come to the board. So what we did was we looked at services, and we really wanted to focus on what are the initiatives that are going to help us reach our goals. And every site is unique and has different populations of students, but we really need to focus on those 3 areas. What are the core services that are mandated, that are required by law, or that are part of our local control accountability plan? And so that's really where we kind of looked at what are our core functions, and then we also looked at what are the next level, level 2, which is enhances learning but not legally required, and so it really brings more to the learning experience. And then level 3, which are activities that they do hold value, but they're not legally required, and often we can eliminate them pretty quickly because they are not the core part of service. And so we wanted to also acknowledge that everything we do is important, but we can't do everything, and so we do really have to prioritize. So this was not easy to go through this process. So our task was to consider how to best allocate resources and structure programs given declining enrollment. So we looked in 4 areas: reducing expenditures, adjusting staffing levels, consolidate, close, or merge schools, and find new sources of revenue. So each meeting, we really dove deep into those areas, as well as looking at the different budgets and different contracted services and programs. How did we get here? Why are we even having this committee? If you look at our enrollment as a district for the last 10 years plus, and projected enrollment for the next few years, you can see we had a huge decline during COVID, and then it's been a slow decline ever since. We did have my first 2 years as superintendent, in 23, 24, 24, 25, we were actually pretty close, it was pretty leveled, but then this last year, we saw another drop. A pretty large drop. And we anticipate next year we're going to see another large drop, and I'll kind of go into that in more detail later. So that's kind of where we are and why we're having these conversations, because our funding is based on enrollment and average daily attendance. So when fewer students are coming to our district, we get fewer funds to support our students. So this is a chart that shows our enrollment by grade level. And this is our current year, which is just wrapping up. But you can see our middle school grades, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, are well over 500. But then you see our TK Kinder, first grade, there's a little bit of a spike, but we're in the low to mid 400s. And so as those grades move up and those larger grades move out, we're going to see more decline. So that 8th grade class is moving out. We have this kinder class that's pretty low moving in. And so that difference is about 140 kids just right there. And so we're looking also at our kinder enrollment coming in next year. We're seeing a reduction in kinders coming even from this year. So we're seeing this trend and it's happening, so we need to prepare for it. We do, obviously, we have reserves, which is why we've been really strategic about doing this committee over a year and taking our time. But we're going to get to a point where we need to make some decisions about our enrollment and our and how we spend our funding. So if we look at our district budget, most of our costs are employees, they're people. So our teachers, our classified salaries, and our benefits, that's 73% of our funding. And then you can see the rest, books and supplies, services and operations, other outgo, those are things, services outside of our district, like our county office of education, et cetera. So when we look at those 4 areas that we were focusing on, what I did after meeting with the committee and going through all of the different kind of line item, contracted services, programs, et cetera, I got an idea of what was prioritized and important to them. So I met with my cabinet team, which is the 3 assistant superintendents, and directors. So all of our departments were represented, and we said, we know these well. We're the ones that established the budgets for the LCAP. Let's take a look at what we're spending, and knowing that we do need to make reductions and we do need to look at areas to have cost savings so that because we're in a structural deficit. We're spending about $9 million more every year than we're receiving. So we have reserves that are helping us right now, and the governor sometimes gives us one-time funds that helps us, but we have a deficit that is ongoing and it's not sustainable. So we started looking at different areas. And in these 4 buckets, we started looking at what are some ideas that we could consider. So we called these considerations, not recommendations. This is just areas that we think maybe tier 2, or level 2, level 3, areas that they benefit our students, but they also are areas that we might want to consider reducing. And so you can see those 4 areas, we have dollar amounts. Now, these are ballparks, they're guesses, because we don't know negotiations, what salaries might be in the future, et cetera. And we also did by year. So you could see the 25-26 savings already occurred. We already made those. We already have several for next year that we've done, and you'll see those in a moment. But you can see with all of these, and the largest chunk is the consolidating closing schools, and I know that's a difficult conversation to have, but that is a projection. So we're looking at 8 million, almost 9 million in cost savings if we make all these adjustments to help us close the gap. Now, today, actually, earlier I was at the county office for the budget perspectives workshop where they're looking at the governor's budget, the May revise. It's hot off the presses. I know Ms. Peterson has been attending a lot of these budget workshops, and she'll share her budget outlook at the next meeting. But things are looking good, but there's still a problem with us because we're still not receiving enough for what we're expending. So we do need to make choices, but it might not be such a big hit in our deficit as we projected originally. However, there's still a deficit, and it's still structural, and it's still ongoing. So looking at that first bucket, the first one, reduce expenditures, here's some highlights of some of the areas that the committee looked at. And we looked at this in detail. And so we have shifted our calendar to, in the past, we had our COVID relief money, and there was to add extra school days beyond what is legally required. So we had 2 additional school days they used to be professional development days. We converted them to school days for that learning loss recovery. And so now we are switching those back to staff professional development because the best way to improve instruction is to support our staff. That is number one. Research shows that that's where you're going to have the biggest impact, is having staff receive supports. And so what we're doing is we've been providing release days in order to provide those supports because we didn't have those days anymore. And so shifting back those days to institute days or professional development days instead of student days will have a cost savings from those sub-costs when we were doing release days for our staff. So that's a big improvement there. And then also some technology software. We have several licenses, software licenses that have been underutilized, so we're looking at that. We're already saying, oh, we have too many licenses, and even with our enrollment, it was passed. And so we're saying, oh, let's renew that contract, but shorten it to what we're actually using. So we're already looking at ways to reduce there. Another one, this was a big one. This is the Sunset the Youth Cinema Project. This is actually parcel tax dollars, but we can use parcel tax dollars to help us maintain services that are coming out of the general fund, like counselors, things like that. And so it's about $220,000 a year for 4 classrooms, 4 schools. And so that was something that was a big conversation. It's a great program. We do like it. There is a recommendation from the committee, and I'll share that with you in a moment. And then also we're looking at how do we refine our services to still provide high quality, but then also reduce costs, so providing in-house special education transportation. Having in-class Chromebook carts, so students were each receiving one to take home, come back, throwing them in their backpacks. The breakage, we were having to replace a lot, so having them protected in the classroom, they last longer and we don't have to replace them as much, so that's a cost savings there. And then also, we looked at, this is something we offer to our 5th grade families. It's an outdoor education subsidy. It's about $50,000 every year, which reduces the cost of outdoor ed by $120. Next year, it goes up an additional $20 for the cost of outdoor ed. It's about $575 for a 5-day week. But that is something I'll share later that the committee said, let's not reduce that, but it was something to consider. And then also we give all of our school sites some discretionary funds. And so that comes out of the general fund. We give a per pupil amount. And so maybe not all school sites use all of their funds. Some do, some don't. So we were thinking maybe we reduce the discretionary amount so that we can fund district level services like the counselor, things like that. And then also our professional development days, when we have all staff together, we do provide food. Not everyone eats the food, not everyone, everyone has different tastes and palates. And so the thought was maybe we have people bring your own lunch, and it saves about $30,000. But we also know that, we don't know how that would go over with staff. The teachers in the room for the committee were saying, yeah, get rid of it. But the parents were saying no. So it was interesting. So that total, when we ballpark it, is about 1.3 million. So let's take a look at the next area, which is adjust staffing levels.
You're down to your last minute and a half.
Oh,
by the
no.
way.
Would you like to extend me?
I think
Motion.
we can, well, for how much time?
10 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, I have a motion for 10.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. You now have 11 minutes.
Thank you. Changed to 11. I thought I was going to go faster.
You're fine.
Oh, do you mind doing that? All right, I don't want to waste a minute doing that. All right, adjust staffing levels. So, as I said, some of the things we've already kind of sorted through. So we have reduced 1 district administrator for next school year. And then, as I said, the kindergarten class, we're already seeing 4 fewer needs for kindergarten classes. So that means 4 fewer teachers we need to hire. Or we need to place. And then also, as you saw, the 5th grade going into 6th grade, we're going to need fewer sections. So we see about 2 middle school certificated staff. This is actually, the numbers are a little higher due to staffing. So those are already happening. I want to point out, though, with the district administration that we're looking at for the next few years, district administration is centralized services, so the work is still there. It doesn't go away. We then have to give it to somebody else. And so sometimes it means, this happened to me actually in my previous district, where they reduced so many district administrators that all the principals had to take on all the work. I was doing the state testing, so we have to be careful about how much we reduce in the district administration, because the work still exists. And then we don't want to be leaning too much on our site administrators, because we want them to be instructional leaders, and then also our support staff. So we need to be careful with that. Same with district support staff. And then as you see, I have in 27, 28, 4 elementary and 2 middle school, because as those cohorts move up, the kinder next year, 4 less kinder, we're going to need 4 less first grade, and so on. So as we look at our enrollment and staffing, as our enrollment is shrinking, that means teachers follow the students. We may not need as many. We have been fortunate that we do not need to do any layoffs, because we have attrition. We have people moving on, we have people retiring, and then we have our interns too, and we're looking at, being able to fill some of those spaces with some of our interns that have worked with us, so possibly. So we are hoping that we can offer maybe a retirement incentive, or just through attrition. Same with the district administration, we maybe just need to reconfigure some of the workloads and things like that. So this total, it's mainly the matching enrollment for this school sites that is the biggest part of this funding, the $3 million. And so we do see that, I think next year we're looking at maybe 8 reduction in need for staffing, because of the numbers of students in the classroom. The next one, this is the tough one. This is the one no one on the committee wanted to talk about, but we had to. It was something we had to look at and understand. The California Department of Education has a guiding document with 9 criteria, how you look at closing and merging schools. So I was looking at what are the true costs of a school when you don't include the classroom and the teacher, because teachers follow the students. And so you can see there the list. And so I was thinking closing 2 elementary schools, 1 additional in the year beyond, not in 26, 27, but in 27, 28, and then closing 1 middle school, because as those classes go up to middle school, we're going to have fewer and fewer students in those classes. So this was just a ballpark, an idea. This was not popular, obviously, but we do need to consider this, because we have really small schools and small class sizes and small classrooms, and we're not able to provide the resources we need to students to have a strong program. We have split classes, and if we were able to consolidate schools, merge schools, have more classes per grade, we'd be able to really strategically have resources for those schools and those students, and have a better program. So I think it's not just about the cost of closing a school. I think it's also the program. It's really important to have strong programs, and we can have more services for our students if we have more robust class sizes and classes. Teachers can collaborate. We have several schools with 1 class per grade. This, I'm going to talk about the recommendation in a second, and I know I'm probably running out of time. Find new revenue, sources of revenue. Big conversation. We talked a lot about Kids First Education Foundation, but the thing about that is that it has to be ongoing, and that is, a lot of times it's one-time funds, and we need a lot of money to make it viable. We also talked about, if we do close schools, renting some of the property. That's not included in the amount I have there, but that would bring revenue if we were to rent the properties, if we were to close some schools. Selling surplus property, that's a one-time solution, but this is actually something the committee did not recommend. The biggest thing we can do is improve our daily attendance, because all of our money comes from our average daily attendance, and so the more students attend, the more money we receive. And so that's something that we can focus on and earn millions more if students are coming to school regularly. So what I recommend, and our cabinet team recommends, is that we form a school closure consolidation merge committee next school year, led by an outside expert that can be a neutral party, that we can, I'll bring it back for a contract next meeting, that we would have this committee, including family members and teachers and classified staff, everyone who's invested, and come to a recommendation to the board so that we can determine if we should close schools, which schools should close, and how many and when. So the committee looked at all this, and they were very adamant about not closing schools. However, they understand that this is probably something we need to really consider as they're seeing it across the state. They do not recommend closing two schools in 27-28. They're saying only consider closing one if necessary. They do not recommend closing a middle school, and they do not recommend selling surplus property. They think that is the wrong move. You don't sell property in California. That was very clear to us. And they do not want to eliminate the outdoor education subsidies. Remember, these were all just considerations, so they came loud and clear. The committee does recommend keeping reductions away from the classroom. They recommend consider merging or reconfiguring, maybe make a K-8 school, a K-2, 3, 5, looking at the configuration so you don't have to actually close a school. So that was an idea. Make the plan next year for the next 2 to 3 years. So if you're going to close 3 schools, 1 school, whatever, have that plan decided next year so everyone knows. So that was a big consideration or recommendation. They also want to really boost up Kids First Education Foundation and the opportunities and connections. They want the community to really work on supporting their revenue generating opportunities, so a call to action. And then also lets sites select their software based on need, usage, and outcomes. So that was mainly from, I think, the teaching staff on that. And then sunset Youth Cinema Project, not next year, but the year after, and next year look for funding to fund it. So that was from the committee, their recommendations. And then, this is hard work. So I just have this quote, I'm gonna read it. While shifting priorities and budget constraints sometimes require difficult staffing adjustments, JESD remains dedicated to a transition process defined by compassion and integrity. We are actively engaging with union leadership to explore all avenues for reducing the impact of layoffs on our workforce and maintaining the strength of our organization. So we have to think about these. You saw how much our budget is focused on people. So this is in fact affecting people's work and their lives. So we have to be mindful of that and have that in our hearts. So tonight, there's no action. This is just for consideration and discussion only. We'll be coming back on June 10th I will come back with a contract for the committee. So if you are interested in that, that would be the time to decide if you do want to have that. And we'll also have the public hearing of the Local Control Accountability Plan, which is where all the budget ideas are going to be. So that's when you'll be able to make decisions, but tonight is for discussion and consideration. And then we also have 4 of our committee members here. If they are interested in speaking, they can fill out a speaker card. But that's all I have, and I apologize for going over. I should have given myself more time on the agenda.
You're fine, we voted for more time because that's important to us, so thank you. Well, let's give you a round of applause for your presentation. All right, so now we'll go to comments or questions from the board. So this is as Superintendent Kulik said, this is information discussion only, so we'll do comments, questions. Please limit it to 1 each and we'll go around and then we can start our discussion. And this time, I think I started on my right last time, so I'm gonna start on my left this time.
Thank you for the presentation. I think that getting the extra time was important because we can't just hear the outcome without hearing what brought us to it. And like you said, I did join the first meeting because I was like, oh man, my kids are little, this could impact them. So thank you to the parents and the staff and everybody that was a part of it. The reason I was interested in it, this is more comment than question. I do have one question, but I was in Pacifica earlier this year and I saw parents and people standing around with recall the school board, all these things because schools just closed. Mid-year, they found out schools were closing, really impacting the staff, the students, the families, wondering what's going to happen, where they're going to go. And I think a lot of that is not misinformation, but lack of information given for people to understand why difficult decisions are made. None of these decisions are made in jest or lightly or because we're greedy and we just want more money for whatever these things. when you give information and you back it with data, then it's easier to understand why difficult decisions have to be made. I work in business, I get it, difficult decisions are, you can't, if you have $20, you can't buy something that's 30. It's just the law of economics, and that's how it is. So I really do appreciate the district being proactive and taking the time to years ahead say, this isn't happening tomorrow, this isn't happening at the end of the school year, but this could happen in the next few years and involving the community. And so at that point, it can say, or we can say, this was not a decision made by 7, 8, 9, 10 people around a table. This was a decision where we asked and we invited people to participate. So if there are any feelings or ill-harbored intents or feelings, whatever it is towards our community and towards, you know what, next time get involved, say something, speak up, do something. So I appreciate everybody that joined it because you spoke up, you got involved, and there are a lot of decisions that we need to make and a lot of input that we need to hear to be able to make those decisions because these are the people and the families that are impacted. Long-winded way of saying thank you. I know that's a lot of work, but it is so important. Like Tracy said, I was on it. I would have been on it. I would have stayed and sat there with you and, raised my hand on certain things and said, don't do that and let's do that. And, had very thoughtful discourse about it. So comments, I may think, I'm not excited to make these decisions or to have to consider these things, but I know that they're needed. And I don't know if this is a silly question because I know that technically TK and kindergarten aren't mandatory because I think it's 6th grade or grade 6 years old is when technically you have to go to school. So do those numbers change maybe by 1st grade and maybe they don't because you would assume that some of these other grade levels would have increased, but is there a possibility that we could get a higher rate for the rising 1st graders because people are deciding, oh, my kid has to be in school because they're 6 now, or does that tend to not be a major impact?
We typically see our students coming to us in TKK. We don't see kids not going to school and just coming in 1st grade. That's pretty rare. So our numbers are pretty aligned.
Accurate, okay. Okay, my only question. Thank you again, thank you, everybody.
I have a couple questions, but you said one at a time, right?
Yes, please.
So I was just wondering about the site discretionary allocations. What happens right now? You said some of the schools use them and some don't. If they don't use those funds, what happens?
They all use the funds. It's just a matter of if they carry over. So what happens is then if they don't use them, sometimes they like to save up and try to purchase something or have a program for the next year, and so they try to save up 2 years. It really just depends on the school site, but the funds do carry over, and so some sites have a carryover for several years, especially when COVID, they weren't spending the money because students were in school. But that was an idea. It was not very popular. I'm not sure if that's really the one we want to pursue. It might be, let's see how this year goes with funding. So it was kind of, these, like I said, these were just ideas that our cabinet came up with. And so when we heard from staff, we heard from the principal saw it as well. And they had a, ooh, reaction. So that might not be something that we put in. But yeah, it is, we've noticed some schools have a large carryover. And so it may be that we say you only get to carry over 15%, and then we sweep back so that we can put it into our funds as well. So there's lots to consider.
Yeah, these are certainly very difficult conversations, and I just want to thank Superintendent McCulick and the district leadership and staff for putting together such a clear presentation. There's clearly a lot of thought in it, and the recommendations are tough issues, but they are very well reasoned and thought out. And that was largely because of the work of the Budget Facilities Advisory Committee. I had the honor of serving as one of the board members, and I really want to thank each and every person who served on the committee, some of whom are here tonight. I just want to say that, I wish we were having conversations about growing, our programs and our schools. It really sucks to have to talk about shrinking. But I do just want to paint this in the bigger context that this is happening all over the country. And it is particularly happening here in the Bay Area because of our very high cost of living. And so, you see families have left the area. We see that there is less immigration, and that is a big factor in our very diverse community. But across the country, birth rates have declined since the Great Recession, and we are seeing that happen here. So it is clear from the enrollment data that, we need to get smaller. And I really want to, commit to doing so in a way that minimizes impact on students first and foremost, avoids layoffs, minimizes impact on classrooms. And it was really clear from hearing the committee that that was their priority too. The other thing that I really think that we can do is continue to improve as a district, as hard as it is. If we're going to have consolidated or merged schools, I want to see better schools come out of that. And, unfortunately, we may see parents having to commute a little bit longer, some changes in those schedules. If we are asking people to do that, I want to see some better programs, services that that we can deliver, which is hard in this kind of budget environment. But I really still believe that we can do that. So all that said, I do have just one question, and that is to clarify with Youth Cinema Project. Are you recommending in the next, as part of the 26-27 budget projections, is Youth Cinema Project included?
It is included, you'll see in the agenda item 8C, the Measure C spending proposal. So we did include it in there. So that will be a decision you could actually make tonight, whether you want to include it or not. Because it is a parcel tax expenditure, and that's with the new parcel tax. But I'll explain that later. But yeah, it is. It was recommended by the committee to keep it for one more year until we find, but you will be able to make that decision this evening.
I want to say thank you to Superintendent Mikulik for having the foresight to create this committee, knowing that we were going to be coming up on tough times due to that declining enrollment, and obviously everyone that was involved in bringing forth these recommendations. Obviously, it was a very hard conversation over a couple of months. However, I come from the business world, and what got us here doesn't get you there. And so just because we've been doing something, the status quo is not always the way to go. Even though I know change is hard, a lot of people fear change. I think actually change is not always a bad thing. Yes, there are some difficult decisions that are being made, but those difficult decisions can help with better schools, better programs. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of what we're doing here. And I guess that's what I hope is coming out of this, and it's not just focused on the negativity of closing schools or having possible layoffs or having possible consolidations. It's beyond that, and I hope that's what people are hopefully hearing from this, that we're being proactive about how we can do this right. A trustee had mentioned earlier that we're really glad that we're having these conversations now, and so that people are not blindsided. Obviously, a lot of people are not at this meeting tonight. I was hoping to see more people listening in, or at least being engaged in what's happening. So what that means is, even if people are not raising their hands, I would like to see at our school sites these conversations happening. However we do that, whether that be at a open house or a back to school night, at a PTA meeting, because unfortunately for us, people get and receive information differently. Some people don't look at the board meetings. Some people are not reading their emails, and so we have to bring the information to them, or we may still have the situation where people are saying, well, you never told us and we didn't know that you were going to do these things. So that would be my recommendation, to help alleviate and maybe just show that we are trying our best to get the word out there about what we are trying to do around hopefully saving our district from making any other hard decisions down the line. I have several questions, but
Can
I
I
will
just respond
yes,
to that,
go ahead.
actually? So that would be part of the process with this committee next year, through this contracted service that I'm going to bring back, that includes going out to communicating with school sites and things like that.
Perfect, thank you, and that was not a question. My first question is, so in my regular work life. I actually manage licenses. So when I saw the whole software thing, I actually was confused about how we budget for them, and I guess I'm not understanding how we did not have a process for truing up licenses. What my understanding is, it should be every year. You look at how many licenses you have, how many you're not using, determine if you're going to get additional or have a need for additional licenses, or if you're like, you know what, we're not going to have, we have 100 licenses open, we probably need to keep about 30, but we shouldn't have all 170, let's remove. So I guess I'm not understanding how we have not done that, and what is the goal even in the future, because it shouldn't just be a one-time true-up, it should be consistently, as we lose, we review, we budget, we true up, we add more, or we reduce. So I don't know if anyone can answer
Yeah, I can
that
answer.
question.
So some of our contracts were multi-year, and so that was one. There was also, we're also seeing that even though we have it true to enrollment, the usage is not there. So some teachers are just, they prefer other programs, so they're not using we have multiple programs, so we're really wanting to streamline, but every teacher has a preference. I like this one better than this one. So we're looking at ways to have that choice, but then also reduce those unused, maybe certain schools get, there's equivalent programs, and there's preferences, so maybe certain schools can have, this is their program, but they all have to do it, and then instead of teacher by teacher, because it's really hard to manage and navigate when you have this teacher doing this one, this teacher, and then so it's hard to keep up with the licenses. But if we were to do it some sort of globally where this grade level or these schools, or so that will help us manage those, because we have multiple software licenses, and some of the programs were just not being underutilized. Even though it was accessible to everyone, not everyone was using them. But I also know that there's this tech backlash too, so we also want to look at really strategically using our technology so that we see, is there an outcome? What is the outcome? So we really, and that's actually what our LCAP is asking for too. We have to have data that aligns with the programs that we use. And so that's what we're going to be refining through the process. So it's not really that we had all these licenses it's just, we have these licenses, most of them matched up to our enrollment, but not every teacher was using those programs, and maybe we had too many programs that were redundant.
I have a comment back to that. It may be a question, but it's a comment. I'm not going to ask a question. I'm going to say the thing that probably nobody wants to hear. I think we have to get away from allowing people to do what they want and have an option. I know it's, we want the school sites to do what they want, but I think that is, causing some of the issue. We have to hold people accountable, and we have to be consistent. This is what we have, this is what we're using, this is why we're using it, this is the purpose of it. If we continue to give people the leeway, we will probably continue to see these issues, but that's
I agree.
All right, I'm going to say a few short comments, and then I have two questions, but I'm only saying one. Well, first of all, I definitely agree we do not sell property. I actually just had this conversation earlier with actually my coach, who is also a former superintendent, and she said at a district that she previously worked at, they sold property, and that was a very bad idea because it skyrocketed in Milpitas. They could have been making a lot more. I actually really want to appreciate how far ahead of the game that we are. So just like what Trustee Jordan said, like in my professional work, I work at a county office of education, and in Santa Clara last year, they closed 12 schools, and 6 were from one district. And that was pretty abrupt and out of nowhere. So we are actually in such a good standing that we are really fortunate that we have time to not rush to close 6 schools. Like that's a third of our district. We don't have to rush to make these decisions. We're actually in a very good standing. And I really want to appreciate that committee and the next committee that's going to do this, because again, like we're really fortunate. And we're not going to hopefully have to leave anybody. Oh, you have a job one day and not an next. We're going to be able to give a lot of time. So again, I'm actually, as horrible as these things are to have to do, again, as you said, change is not always a bad thing. And so I'm hoping that we can be like a phoenix and rise from the ashes. With those 2 comments, I have 2 questions, and these are more informational for our audience. And I'm going to actually refer to Assistant Superintendent Peterson. So I know we've previously talked about at one of your sessions where we are in good standing. Can you repeat for our audience, what happens if we are not in good standing, if we do not report good standing to the state?
Yes, thank you for the question. So that has to do with when we bring our budget to the board, and good standing means we have a positive certification. So positive means we can meet our financial obligations for the current fiscal year and the 2 upcoming years. So we have to do 3-year forecasting. And then qualified would be the next category, and that means that we may or may not be able to meet our obligations in the current or 2 upcoming fiscal years. And then negative means we cannot meet our obligations. We could even have a negative cash flow in the current fiscal year or upcoming fiscal years. And in those different categories, there's different levels of where the county will come in and oversee the district. If you're qualified, you will be assigned a county consultant, and they will work with you on a fiscal stability, stability plan. And also negative is when the state can come in and they will start reviewing the books and they will issue a report. So those are the different levels. Hope that answers the question.
May I add to that,
Almost.
actually?
Yeah,
When the
yes.
state comes in, many times they remove the superintendent and I believe the board. And so that is, and district staff. And so that is very, it's very challenging because then that's continuity. It creates a huge disruption.
So that's exactly the part of it that I wanted our public to know. So I hope that we refer people to this session where they can read what was presented here, where they can hear what was spoken of, because again, what you both just said. So we want our district to be run by our community. We are elected by our community. We live in this community. We want to continue running this district and having the district be a decision by our people for our people. If it goes to the state or goes to the county, it's no longer our people anymore that are running this district or our schools. We're not making those decisions anymore, and we lose all of our, we basically are now just a district of the state, which the state are gonna make those hard decisions as numbers, not as human beings, because that's what they're trying to make us more fiscally sound. So thank you both, you answered my question perfectly. And I have a second one, but I will, I want to go back around in order, just if anyone had any second or third more questions.
So I had a question about the unfilled positions. Like, where are we as a district? Because, you know, it's been at least, 20 years that we've been saying we have a national teacher shortage. So I'm just wondering, as we're looking to reduce expenditures, and the number one expenditure is salaries. So where are we as far as unfilled positions?
We're actually in a good situation. The labor market's changed. We've had a lot more certificated folks coming in with experience. I think part of that is a result of other districts are downsizing. We've also had a flow of teachers coming in from our USF residents. We have 6 folks who just are finishing up, which we're hoping to tap into. But it's been a good balance this year between the consolidations that have been a result of declining enrollment, folks backfilling what otherwise would have been open positions. So right now, we're down to, I think, there's maybe 3 unfilled teacher positions looking into next year. Classified, it's going to be a little different, and certainly some movement still between now and June 30th, fingers crossed. But it's actually been quite good compared to other years. So I'm happy with that.
This was not a question that I had before you asked that question, so now I've increased my number of questions. How does this then affect our USF program, or does it at all?
Can I just ask clarification, effect in what way in terms
If
of?
we are saying that we may have to do reductions, but we have a program where we're saying, and I can't remember exactly, but I remember it was like they would come on for like 2 years, I believe. It was like a year or 2 years. Well, then if we don't now have that need, how does that change what we've designed the program to become?
Thank you. So they understand we don't have 6 open positions right now. So I actually, today was a little graduation party for the USF folks. You know, they understand that. And it was more of a goal than a full commitment if we had those positions. But those people we hire of the crew And again, they still need to be interviewed and go through the whole process. They weren't guaranteed a position just rolling in. Some of the folks might not get hired. But the program for next year, we just got a grant approved. We're going to roll out again our second year. So I think inevitably there might be a few folks each year, either that choose not to work with us or we're not able to hire. I just can't make positions.
Can I, so it's like it's in addition to, it's not like a separate question, it's like more clarifying. Can I do that?
I was gonna ask one, but that's fine.
But
You
if
can
it's
go ahead.
in clarifying to
It is
that.
not, it was based on a 4-1, so go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah. You're fine. You're fine.
You said that it was clear that it was not guaranteed. Honestly, I didn't know that until you just said it. So is it clear in the right, I guess I want to know how are we making sure it is clear? Is it in writing? Because I want to make sure that we're not setting a precedent or a thought, and then there is some sort of disappointment because there was a thought that it was not a guarantee, and I don't want to, the word is not guarantee, but right, like once you go through the interview process, there is a possibility, and it seems like even if you go through the interview process, there is still may not be a possibility because of what we're going through. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
I think I understand
Okay.
what you're asking.
Would I actually be able to answer that? Or do you think? Yeah, so,
My
well,
pleasure.
so like when you're an intern teacher, you're still in a credential program, you're earning your credential. So you're not, even though you're hired for that year, you're a temporary staff for that 1 year, but you're there for your program. So like I was an intern teacher when I got my credential. So I was there so the program was 2 years as an intern. So you had to intern for those 2 years, but that doesn't mean you're hired at that school. You're temporary. So you can go in so San Francisco State interviewed me. They got me in the program. I earned my credential, but they could have hired me if there was a job available. There was not a job available, so I was kind of filling in for an unfortunate circumstance that happened to a different teacher.
Maybe, so, and I'm going to ask you now this question. Sorry, it's like in
Fair.
the same vein, so it's not multiple questions, or it is. I guess I'm actually maybe even thinking like, will they even get the intern part of it? Being that, like, is that a guarantee? I guess is where, like, the intern part guaranteed, even though we're doing now the reduction. Like, I guess that's the part that I'm still unclear about. I guess I understand the teacher part, that makes sense based on what you said, but I'm also like, well, does the intern part even, how is that affected?
Yeah, that one I'll pass back.
So none of these folks are interns. They're residents. So they're not employees. They're essentially student teachers. So in terms of clarifying, perhaps to the board, certainly that was a goal to have all these folks hired, but the group of 6 residents as well as the 2 USF professors, they understood that was a goal to have everybody hired, just like it was a goal to get people in the workforce housing and all of that. They always understood, though, that the process entailed them being interviewed and hired for the position. So even though we only have 3-4 vacancies right now looking into next year, first of all, a lot can happen between now and August, and that happens. I always say, oh, hiring is great, and I end up hiring tons of people. But all 6 of those folks could interview for the 3 or 4 positions. So as far as the concern of, why am I participating in this whole thing if I don't have a guaranteed job? People understand that's the market's out there and that's what I have to work with. I can't create positions. And several of the folks, because of where they live and stuff like that, may not even be, entertain a position with our district. So I think it's been very clear as far as with that team, and I'm not concerned about them going, hey, you promised us something and you're not delivering. And had I, at the beginning of this whole process, we certainly introduced the USF residents. Our goal was to hire all those that came through as a kind of built-in pipeline. This year's openings just kind of fell differently, which so far, knock on wood, has been good. But I do appreciate those questions and asking to get that clarification, though.
Well, and I think the goal of it is to get a credential and a master's. It's not, I mean, of course, a job is down the line, but once you have your credential and your master's, you can go anywhere.
100%. I guess I would, Can I request to get the ad that we do for that? I think maybe based on what I saw, I would recommend maybe we update it to say possibility, something like that, just because I don't know, I felt like it was very like, I don't know if it said guarantee, right? But it was more like pipeline to and even though I understand it, as someone coming out of college, an economy that we have, I just want to make sure that it is super clear that it is an experience with potential and possibility, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'll look at the
Thank you.
advert and we'll share it and we can decide if it needs to be updated or not.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and there's anything I can get from my colleague Jennifer LaRock, who's handles the liaison kind of work with USF, I can get that and share it with the board.
All right, Vice President Rashba, we skipped you. Did you have any further comments or questions?
I don't have any more questions. I guess I have a few, like, last statement, but I'll wait till all the questions are exhausted.
Sure. So then U.S. So I just had one more. Again, this is more of a information for our audience. So I don't know if Superintendent McCool, you might know this best. Maybe Assistant Superintendent Peterson. Do we know how many other districts in this county have gone through school closures?
Well, we have Pacifica, as Trustee
Yeah.
Policarpio mentioned, they just closed. I do know of other districts that are investigating it like we are. I think there's about 3 or 4. I'm not going to say the districts because they're in the process and I don't want to out a district. But yeah, there are quite a few districts in the peninsula that are looking at those options as well. And as I said, I know a couple years ago, Redwood City closed 2 schools. And I believe there's some down in Santa Clara County that have also have been closing schools as well. So it, like Trustee Rashba said, this is a very expensive area, and this is where we're seeing a lot of decline in enrollment, and that's where you're going to need to consider closing schools.
Yeah, no, I just wanted for our audience to know, for anyone who's watching at home and doesn't know, yeah, we're not the only ones who are going through these changes, unfortunately. All right, so any more questions on this side of the table? All right, and then Trustee Ali, did you have any other questions? No. So Trustee Jordan, I think you're the last one.
Of course I am. Okay, this one is in relation to the comment or the discussion around in-house transportation. Did we have something on the agenda before for that? So is that a part of the, I guess, 26, 27 savings that we're hoping to see because of what we've
in both.
already?
We purchased 3 vans.
Yes.
And we started in March, I believe. I'm looking at Ms.
Yes,
Peterson.
we did, we started.
And so we saw some cost savings in 25, 26. And then because it's a daily rate that we're seeing cost savings because the county. However, gas prices are ridiculous right now. And so I'm not sure, it's going to be maybe a little smaller cost savings because of that, unfortunately. But it is, we do prefer to bring things in-house when we can and have the capacity to do so.
I just wanted to, I remember that being on the agenda and us approving it, so I wanted to actually call it out for the public to say that that was even something that we were doing despite the committee, and so I'm excited to hear that that is something that is already, well, depending on gas prices, helping us move to this more in-house. So thank you for that. I do have one more question. I actually scratched the other one out because we have a new committee coming, and I think that question is probably more so towards that committee. So this one is actually more in relation to actually agreeing with the committee's recommendations around the consolidation or merging. I think that's a great recommendation, but it actually now has, so my question is now in relation to teachers and class sizes. My daughter currently, or last year, was in a split class, and I understood the reason for it, wasn't a fan of it, but then now she's in one class, but then there's a lot of students. So I guess my question is, what is considered the right size or the ideal class size? Because if we do consider merging and consolidation, it's kind of very similar to what you said about when we do layoffs, the work is still there. And so then someone is taking on more than they can. And I think of that in by way of a teacher who's already having to maneuver the change that now has 10 more students that they're not used to teaching and what that does for them. So I guess it's kind of a two-part question. What is an ideal class size and how do we help with that kind of transition, knowing that it's hard to take on more work when we already have a lot of work to begin with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Class size is actually contractual. So
Okay.
that's in our AFT, American Federation of Teachers, JESD contract. And so it depends on the grade level. So TK is 20-1. Plus, you need to have, it's actually 10-1. You need to have a teacher and then an instructional aide to make 10-1. And that's a very strict state law. And then we do class size reduction. So in kinder through third grade, it is 26-1, 24. Sorry. I'm going to have, go ahead, is it
24.
24-1,
You
but
to
can go up to
26
26.
To prevent a split as long as there's
Yeah.
agreement between the teacher and the admin, and we can't have a ratio of more than 24-1 K3.
And then we have 4-5 has class size of 30
4-5 is 32.
with a deviation.
4-5-6 is 32. They have a allowable deviation of 10%, so it could go up a little bit more, contract language. And then 7th and 8th is 33.
And they don't have assistance with those 33 or 30 children? It's just them? Cool.
This has been, I mean, I started teaching
I understand.
20, 30, almost 30 years ago, and it was 30, yeah, 31, 33, yeah, it's especially in the upper grades.
Thank you.
All right, and then I didn't have any last comments, but I think Vice President Rashba does, so I'm gonna let him take the closing comments.
I just want to reflect that, the committee, there was a lot of discussion around finding new revenue. And of course, we all want to pursue that goal as opposed to making cuts to our expenditures and certainly to our staff. A lot of, attention around Kids First, and I think it's great to have Kids First as a way of directing energy, within our district. And if people want to support, I think there is a lot of potential to, raise funds within our district. But I do want to make clear that Kids First has, a limited potential in that, the current fundraising is in the tens of thousands, and as stated tonight, our budget gap is 9 million, per year. So I really think that the biggest way that we can drive up our revenues, I actually disagree with you, Superintendent McCulloch, around attendance. I really think that it is around the increasing our base of LCFF funding. So, I know that the board took action to advocate for that in our last meeting, and we will continue to argue for that. I would call on the Daly City Council to pass pro-housing policy, because we need more housing for our schools to have more students, and that is what our community needs. So, I think those are the biggest factors around revenues. And then, the things I wanted to say were actually around just some of the specifics in terms of providing guidance. I do want to say around outdoor ed that I would like to see the subsidy offered at least to all families. I think that asking for the full cost of the of the program of $575 per student, I think that we should state that that's what it is and ask for that, but I think that we should offer subsidies to every family who needs one and encourage families to apply for them if that is an issue. I think that with providing food for our staff in professional development, let's look at reducing costs but not eliminating. I think that having that is really good for our teachers to offer some sustenance while they're training. The other comment that I want to just uplift is the idea of not doing this piecemeal, and I do think that with something as potentially gut-wrenching as closing, consolidating schools, that it should be done all at once. One announcement as opposed to, news coming out each year. And finally, I really support the idea of having a committee around this because this is a really difficult thing to do in decision, and it's appropriate that we would take time to study this and make recommendations.
Thank you so much, Vice President Rashba. I think you may have a committee member already. Anyway, all right, so that, is there any more discussion that we would like to have on item 8A?
I just want to say I echo Trustee Rashba's statements around outdoor ed. I think that that's a staple. That's something that children look forward to, and I fear that the elimination will not give it. It's basically not equitable. It will put students and families in a place where they won't be able to attend. And I think about it like someone talked about the cost of living in our area. There's a lot of families that grew up in this community but can no longer buy homes or live in this community. And so I think of it the same. It's like, okay, my first grader years ago was able to go to outdoor ed, but now I have another kid and they cannot. And I just feel like that is just not equitable. And I agree that we should not eliminate that subsidy. I just wanted to say that on the record.
Thank you for providing that feedback. We'll have it in the LCAP, and then you can decide at June 10th if you want to approve that or not.
Again, thank you for those comments. Are there any other comments that would like to be stated? Well, again, this is the first discussion of hopefully more. And so this is not the final, we're not making any decisions here, so we will move on to item 8B, recognition of the Budget and Facilities Superintendent Advisory Committee members. The Governing Board will recognize and thank the Budget and Facilities Superintendent Advisory Committee for their dedicated commitment to serving on this committee. So before Superintendent Mikulik says it, we just want to thank you for bearing with us through all these questions. We had a lot of questions through a lot of your work, and we want to appreciate the work that you did. That's why we're asking these questions. So just wanted to say thank you for bearing with us through an hour and 20 minutes of information.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why they participated on this committee, was to hear what you have to say about the work that they did. And so we have 4 members here tonight. And we want to thank them we have a certificate of appreciation for them, and I'll leave it over to you, but I just want to make sure that they know that I greatly appreciate you coming tonight to hear what the board has to say about the recommendations from the committee, and just thank you for your commitment. I mean, it was a lot of work, and it was hard work, so I really am grateful for the work that you've committed to, and hopefully you'll consider the next committee as well. So thank you. I'll turn it over to the board.
And I think I speak for all of our board members where we really appreciate, and again, just like what Superintendent Mikulik said, hopefully you'll come back and serve again. But again, we really appreciate the service. I think this is probably, again, not the easiest thing to talk about, but one of the most robust and in-depth conversations that we've had. And I think it is going to come out to better things for our district, especially for being more intentional with funds, which I think, as you said, Trustee Jordan, like we should have been doing all along, but as we come to these more corners where we are making those changes, we will have hopefully more money to support other things that are really important. So, but since there are 4 of you here, I've actually given them to the other trustees. So I'm gonna stop speaking. I'm gonna let them present your certificates. I think I started on my left last time, so this time I'll start on my right. Oh, and just when you hear your name, come on up and shake the hand and accept the certificate, just so you know you can come up here.
So this is our certificate of appreciation for dedication and commitment and valuable service as a member of the Budget and Facilities Superintendent Advisory Committee. Your time and expertise and thoughtful contributions have been sincerely appreciated and helped support the important work of the committee and the district community. And this is for Nicholas Curry.
And I have a certificate with the same commendation for Matt Fredericks.
We have a certificate of appreciation for Wendy Kawada.
And I have the certificate of appreciation for Dong Tran.
And again, please, if you see these other, we have certificates for the other members who are on the committee. Of course, they're not here tonight. We want to be intentional about our time here. So we'll make sure to get those to them. But of course, if you see them from us like this, we really sincerely appreciate the work you've done. Again, you're helping us make this district a better place for future years. So thank you, sincerely. Are there any final things from any other trustees? All right, then we will move on to item 8C, Local C, or Measure C, Local Funding Spending Proposal. Discussion/action. Just so you know, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. You do not have to, it is quite late. But again, please stay if you'd like to. We have lots of amazing discussions here. The board will discuss and approve the proposed spending plan for Measure C, local funding measure to both protect and support existing activities and district programs.
Yes,
McCulloch.
so as I mentioned earlier, our Measure T parcel tax was a 9-year parcel tax that is sunsetting at the end of June. And so in March 2024, the voters passed the renewal and increase of our parcel tax, which will start July 1st, 2026, and go for 9 years. And so Measure C is going to have a little bit more than Measure T, but it is a way for us to help offset some of these structural deficits that we have, as well as have enriching programs. So I want to just show you, this is what the voters passed. So these are just the highlights. So if you look in the bold, it's to provide funding for core programs, math, science, technology, reading, and writing. And then because we can't always rely on the state to give us the funds we need. So teacher support, core academics, literacy and science, technology, arts and libraries, student services, enrichment and accountability, making sure that we are protecting the investment of our taxpayers. You'll see at the top, it says 1.6 million annually. The previous Measure T was 1.2 million annually. So it's about 400,000. This depends on the tax, what comes in. And so, we do have our senior citizens can request exemptions as well. And so if they need to, they come to the district office and complete that. But this is what the voters approved, that how we can expend the funds. We do have a Citizens Oversight Committee that does look at our bond funds, any voter approved measure, a bond or parcel tax. We do have to have a Citizens Oversight Committee, and I believe Dong Tran is the chair on the committee as well. He's well invested in the services of our district. And so that is something to make sure that the language of our ballot measure, we are, as a district, expending it according to that. So here is what we propose. And so this is what you will be discussing and approving tonight, if you agree, is that we have ballpark about how much it would cost. So these are the areas, many of these areas have already been existing. We do want to, I know counseling was a big focus of the committee. Mental health supports, we want to make sure our students are supported, especially right now. We're seeing a lot of students that are dysregulated and needing support with regulating their behaviors. And so in order to maintain our counseling support, we're looking at using our parcel tax dollars to help include that. Our libraries, school libraries, making sure that's always been something that was supported. We have one district librarian, and then we increased it to 2 more in the past, but with the reductions in enrollment, we had attrition, we had someone leave, and so we just didn't fill the position. So that did help reduce some of the costs. And actually, they're doing a great job, the 2 district librarians that we have now, one through parcel tax, one through district funds. They're doing a fantastic job supporting all of our schools. So we're really grateful to the work they're doing. And then we also have music electives at the middle schools. We have after-school activities like site tutoring, so each school site gets some parcel tax dollars to, a lot of times it's to fund a teacher stipend or a teacher per diem to do after-school tutoring with students. And then every site gets a little bit of discretionary funds as well to use how they see fit according to the parcel tax dollars. So if they want to do more with libraries, if they want to do some more after-school programming, if they want to do more tutoring, they can have that choice. And then, as you can see, we ballparked continuing those 4 elementary school classrooms, having the youth cinema project for next year, if the board chooses to do that. If the board says, no, let's not do cinema project, we would probably increase the number of counselors that are funded, probably 2 more counselors, so that will help relieve the general fund by that amount, so that it reduces our deficit. So that would be, if the board does not want to continue the youth cinema project next year, then we would maintain more counseling support through parcel tax. That would be my recommendation. So I'll leave it to the board to discuss, and so we need guidance from the board if you agree with our proposal, and so that we can move forward.
I have a question. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, I was going to say thank you to Superintendent McCullough for presenting and then ask for comments or questions, but yes, you can jump ahead.
Thank you, Superintendent
I'll start on my
McCullough.
left.
Thank you, Superintendent McCullough, for that presentation. How do you decide which 4 schools get the cinema project?
So initially, this program started, and Mr. Trustee Ali can help me with the recollection. I was part of it when I was assistant superintendent, where we went and saw the program, I think 8-9 years ago. And it was, you need to have a teacher who's willing. And so we just it was voluntary. And so we need a teacher and a principal who really wanted to support the program. And so we had a teacher at MP Brown who was very interested. And so that's where it started. And then it was, we wanted to expand. We kind of threw it out there and said, to school sites, who's interested? So it was really about interest, because it is a commitment, and you need the teacher to really support the program, because it does take, it changes the way you do instruction in the classroom, because you have a mentor coming 2 days a week for 90 minutes. And so you need to be able to, prove that you have strong, management and strong instructional practices, so that you can include this in your classroom. And so that's really kind of how those 4 schools were decided, was basically on volunteer basis and who was interested.
Can I follow up with one? Okay, yeah. And is it usually a surplus for those 4 spots? Is it 4 always fill it, and there's not like 8 schools that want to have it? Like, what is usually the demand versus
It's the same.
supply?
It's been the same 4 schools for the last couple of years.
Okay.
The same teacher.
And because it's,
And it has to be Title I schools. That
Okay.
the program, the Youth Cinema Project, it has to be supporting Title I
got it.
schools.
Okay.
I'd like to add to that as well. So
Thank
I'm glad that you mentioned that they have to be Title I, but also we talked about in the beginning, hopefully having schools. So the elementary schools that were interested, that we would have the program at the middle school that most of them are going to. And so it would be like a pathway, a CTE pathway, basically, into the film industry, if they were able to go to high school and still participate in like media arts classes and whatnot. So I know that was part of the original intent as well.
Yeah, we actually tried it last year at the middle school. We did it in the after-school program at 2 schools, and it just was not as successful. We did not have a lot of interest from the students at the school sites, and so we decided to not do it. And we use after-school program ELOP money to fund it, but we ended up not continuing it this year because it just wasn't. It wasn't as strong. It's harder to do in the regular school day in the middle school because of the requirement of minutes, and with the number of periods and then how many minutes are in a period or a class period in the middle school. It was scheduling challenge. You wouldn't be able to do it. So that's why we did the after school program, but then we didn't have enough interest to make it sustainable and viable. So that's why it was the intent. We tried it last year and it wasn't successful. So we said, let's just stick with the 4 that have been quite successful.
For the 90 minutes that they're doing the youth cinema project, what are the other schools doing in those 90 minutes?
It's related to literacy. It's related to language arts, and so they're just doing it in a different format in a different way. But they're still it follows standards. It's still aligned to the standards. They're just doing it in through film, through expression, through script writing, things like that.
So I had a question about the site discretionary funds, building on our last, conversation about potentially cutting those 10%. Is it similar to the librarian model where part of the funding comes from the parcel tax and part from our district budget?
Yeah, so they receive general fund discretionary funds and parcel tax discretionary funds. So those two different buckets of money. But the parcel tax discretionary funds have to be used based on the language of the parcel tax. So those areas.
All right, I have two questions, but does anyone else have another question before I go ahead? Mine are two quick ones. All right, so my first one is about the Youth Cinema Project. How many students are total impacted by the Youth Cinema Project?
Well, it's in 4th and 5th grade classes, and as we said, there are about 33, but some schools have smaller class sizes. Some schools, are larger, so about 4 times 33, so 120-ish.
I think it's about 144. Thank you. And then I had a quick question for this, maybe a question for Mr. Marquez Valenti. This is about the parcel tax positions and I guess longevity / job security. So if hypothetically we have one school librarian employed by the district and one school librarian employed by parcel tax, hypothetically, if that parcel tax were to go away, does that person's, so if they have seniority in the district, how would that work? If they were the senior
I can answer
library-
that.
Oh, sure.
We
yeah.
would have to fund that through the general fund.
Okay,
This
so-
is just offsetting.
Oh, so these are all, every single position here is general funded. This would just,
No, these are all parcel tax funded, but if they're a permanent employee, we would have to then fund it out of the general fund, which would increase our deficit.
got it.
And if I can just add, oftentimes, it's certainly the case with our two librarians, they also have they have teaching credentials. So we can offer them a teaching position.
Got it, thank you. Those are my two questions. All right, if there are any other questions or a conversation to be had by the board?
I have a question. I know you said you see success only at these 4 schools, but if it's only in 4th and 5th grade, is it because the students that are in 3rd or 2nd, as they've gone up, they've seen their others, I guess, classmates doing it, and so they're like, oh, I'm excited when I get to the 4th grade, because I guess obviously the people that are in 5th are moving out. People in 4th, they did it in 4th, but the people or the children in 3rd never did it because it's not. So how are we saying it's successful? Is it just that they've done it, the teacher is willing, and that's the success, is people are, the teacher is willing to have that instructional time specifically for that? Like, what is success?
I don't remember saying success. Did I say success?
Or maybe you didn't say success.
Yeah, I don't know if I said
think you did
success.
say, you said
I
it's
might have-
successful at this school, it wasn't successful in the after-school program.
Oh, it was
yeah,
the
yeah,
after-school
Okay.
program wasn't successful. Yeah, so no, the program requirement is 4th or 5th grade.
Okay.
So we have to do those grade levels. It has to be a Title I school. And then it has to be with a teacher and a principal that are invested in the program. And so, and it's the same 4 teachers that have been doing it. The one teacher's been doing it for 8 years, and the others have been doing it for 3 to 5 years. I'm looking at Mr. DeLanda here because his one's at his school. And so that's been the program for a while. Success, I mean, we see the films, the kids love it. I don't have an indicator of success, to be honest with you.
I would like to speak to that. So, first of all, I wholeheartedly support the program, and I think that we have time if we go ahead and leave it in here to get all the stakeholders to the table. The leaders from YCP, the teachers who have been involved. I'll chime in as well because I think success will be measured in a lot of ways. One thing that we haven't mentioned about the program, they learn business too, not just the production of films and screenwriting. They actually form a company, each group of 4 students, and they learn the business of film as well. They have to get permits and all types of things through the principal. And so anyway, I think we also, the program deserves us to go into a deeper dive of how it relates to, for instance, literacy, also ethnic studies and CTE. So I think we have a lot of time to, have some more discussions around this.
Well, and I guess one of the things that is on our conversation right now is we have to approve this here today.
This, or if you don't want to fund, I need to know, do you want to fund cinema project or not? And do you
Yeah.
approve the rest of the items? So that's really what the discussion is about today, and action.
Yeah, I mean, so I went to school for film. I understand the benefit of it. I guess I have a question. How many Title I schools do we have?
We don't, well, now it's actually, we have 3 that are not. One school just went back into Title I.
Yeah, I think my concern with moving forward with it, honestly, is that I don't feel like it's equitable. I don't feel like every 4th and 5th grader has access to it. So we have 4 schools, they come out with this great, amazing experience, and then we have all these other schools that are eligible, but we don't have teachers that want to step up. And not to say that they have to, right? But we only have a specific teacher that has, and 4 specific schools that have, and I feel like it's not equitable for the other students that are in 4th and 5th. So that's I'm going to say I do not think it should be moved forward specifically for those reasons, but those are my thoughts.
I would like to speak in favor of moving forward with it for this year. I think that it's obviously been a important, valued program within our district for some time. We have continuity. We have teachers who are committed to it. I am swayed by the belief that it's really a factor of which teachers want to invest in this and participate. And I do think that it is a good thing for all of the reasons that Trustee Ali said. I do think that in an environment of having to make difficult choices, that I am in favor of sunsetting the program in the following 27-28 school year, unless, as was said, some alternative sources of funding can be privately raised. But I do think it's fair to give the organizers, a year to do that.
I actually was going to say roughly the same thing. Actually, but kind of the opposite. I was going to say the same thing, but opposite. So I was going to agree with Trustee Jordan in the sense of, with what you said, which is we are in this realm of making difficult choices, and we need to make decisions that are going to benefit the majority, or as many students, of course, in our district and staff as possible. And I think the one thing that I heard that actually I will say that I actually go with Trustee Jordan on this is, if this money was not used here, it'd be used for mental health services for the district, which to me, mental health or youth cinema, even though my work revolves around CTE and projects like youth cinema, mental health is a crucial, I think I've spoken many, many times about how much I support mental health and our students' well-being, and especially being someone who's been in classrooms and worked with teachers who ever since COVID have seen exponential amounts of different unique behaviors. Like, we need those mental health supports more than ever. But now with what Trustee Rajpa said, I think if it's 1 year and then it's gonna sunset, see, I'm still in between on which way I want to go. But I think I'm still leaning with Trustee Jordan on this one. Trustee Policarpio, we're all looking at you. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. No, we're just.
I waffle between what you all have said, because my first question was how many schools offer this and what is the process of being able to. So one, there's multiple reasons, right? You have to have somebody, a teacher who is committed and willing. Also with the principal, you also have to be Title I. So to Trustee Jordan's point, like, it isn't equitable, because what if a Title I school kid wanted to do it? Or what if, it's just not, Yeah, not equitable. I think that's the clearest and most succinct way to say it. But also in my conversation earlier, like I don't like the idea of just something going away without the opportunity. I'm thinking of the third graders who are probably excited that they were going to be at fourth graders at this school. And so if this is something that at this cost isn't going to make a huge dent either way as negative and or positive, and we can revisit this next year, I think I'm going to go with let's consider the idea of sunsetting, which I also think is what the committee said, because if I was in third grade and I was excited, I'd be so sad. But also I get like that not all the kids get these opportunities. And so I don't love the idea of it just going away, because to our point earlier, like it's like just something just leaving without it being giving a proper send off or opportunity to say thank you and goodbye and last whatever. And at least the second graders will know, this is going to go away. And so there's no coming into it and, ruining anyone's Christmas type thing, right? Like no presents under my tree versus next year I won't get presents under the tree. Very different emotion for a child, right? Again, very long way of saying, I think I'm going to go with keep it for this year, consider it again next year.
Trustee Ali, you have your mic on. Would you like to say anything?
No, actually, no.
And I guess, so I guess it is, I'll say one last time, and then we'll take a quick poll and see where we're at. I think for me, it's, when I think about it in terms of numbers, so we have 4,800 students in our district presently, 4,700. So this 265,000 will support less than 140 kids. And whereas, and I'm sure you would have to go get the number, so I'm not going to ask here, but I think the number of mental health support that could be afforded with $265,000 would probably support. That's two counselors for
It would be about 2 counselors, more than 2.5 maybe counselors.
and then how many students roughly do each counselor support? See, that's the number I
Well,
don't know. If you have
a
that
counselor
right off the head.
supports a elementary school or full school, so like 400, 300.
Yeah, so that's all I wanted to point out. So,
You can.
all right, so Trustee Policarpio, then Trustee Jordan.
I think for my follow-up on that, I remember when Stephanie Martinez, thank you, she was so good at her job. Shout out Stephanie Martinez. But when one of my questions was is that ratio of counselor to student good or bad, because I had no idea, and she actually said we're in a really good ratio of student per counselor. And so I don't think we're in a deficit. If coming off of her presentation, she said we do not have enough counselors for the number of students to be able to support them. And her presentation was really good about how we're in a really good place right now, I think, with ratio and how the students are coming in and responding to our counselors. And so I feel like if that went differently, then I could see where this too is an immediate need right now. And I don't think that it is based on her positive presentation a few meetings ago.
If I could just clarify, this is not to add more counselors, if it were to replace it. It is to fund the existing counselors out of parcel tax instead of out of general fund to relieve the general fund.
Got it.
So that we don't have to look at reducing counseling, that we can maintain our counselors that we currently have funded out of parcel tax, because we
Instead of
are
general.
going to have to look at reductions. And that was a priority of the committee and of many district staff to make sure that we maintain the counseling support that we have.
Okay, then I still stand, because I don't think it's an immediate, we need to do this right now. We're in dire situations for anybody being at a disadvantage for counseling services.
I have 2 comments. So I was actually going to bring up with you what you said. I think in the want, even though it's not an immediate need, to stop using the general funds, I like the idea of moving that 265 to supporting the cost of the counselors. I just think for me, it's not about immediate need. For me, it's about how do we reduce the cost on the general fund, and how do we maintain mental health support to our children, especially with, obviously, yes, we're out of COVID, but there's so much going on with social media. As the children get to middle school, there's just so much happening, and I think you guys have seen the news. There's been so much going on within our district. And sister districts, mental health is just necessary, period, point blank. There's no, it's an immediate need in general, not an immediate need from a, like, we need to move this money, if that makes any sense at all, what I'm trying to say. So in my eyes, I think moving the 265 and not using 265 from the general fund makes sense to me. And then the second thing I was going to speak to is in relation to, well, keeping Cinema Project now for an additional year. I don't know if keeping it an additional year does anything for the children, the ones that were, maybe the children that are going from 4th to 5th in those schools because they had it 1 year. But for the third graders, at the end of the day, something is going to be removed, and I feel like us keeping it, it's kind of like saying, oh, we'll keep it for this year and then we'll take it. It's like, well, it's going to be taken anyways, or possibly, so why are we elongating the gap, if that makes any sense? I don't see a strong immediate need to keep it.
Trustee Ali.
Yeah, so I'm against the sunset, and we haven't voted on the sunset, so I think the conversation is free-flowing right now, but I just stand by what I said. I think we have time to bring all the stakeholders to the table. And also, I mean, this program or model was founded by James Edwards Olmos, so I think, hopefully we can send this YouTube clip to them so they can see that we need more money and more support. I mean, I don't think it has to be an all or none. I don't think we should pit mental health against YCP. I don't think that's fair. And that's it. That's all I have to say.
So then, do you have, go ahead.
I think then if we're voting on this tonight to say that we're using youth cinema, like that we can move forward with how these funds are spent, then I would recommend that this be a roll call vote, because I am not, unfortunately, in agreement, and I'm standing by what I said.
That is, you took the words right out of my mouth. Well, but first, before we do that, we do need a motion in a second. But you could also motion the opposite direction, or however you feel, if that is what you want to do.
Well, I think it's probably going to go forward, but I'm not, is what I'm hearing based on the sentiments, and that's why I'm requesting for it to be a roll call vote.
Well, but we need a motion first. So what I'm saying is you could theoretically motion and get a second, and then a roll calls it and fails, if that's really what you think.
No, we can do it regularly. I just want it to be a roll call vote.
Yeah.
We just need a motion.
I'll motion to approve the Measure C local funding spending proposal.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and yes, Ms. Coverwright, we are going to do a roll call vote. Could you please do one?
Ms. Jordan,
Nay.
Mr. Rashba,
Aye.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Ms. Policarpio,
Aye.
Mr. Sujisaka.
Nay. That motion passes 3-2. All right, we move on to item 9A, Certificate of Retirement. The administration recommends approval for the retirement request from Beth Goff, Principal of MP Brown, effective October 1st, 2026, and requests the appropriate resolution be prepared, commending her for her years of service with the district. Ms. Goff has been employed with the district since July 29th, 2015. Are there any comments or questions? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion. All right, well, I would like to thank her for her years of service with this district. I've known her personally, and it's been a pleasure working with her as well. And then I will motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, Ms. Goff. We're sad you're leaving, but good luck after October. All right, and we move on to item 9B, job description for school principal. The administration recommends the adoption of the attached job description for school principal. Superintendent McCullough?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the most impact in the classroom is instructional leadership and instruction, and having our principals focus on instructional leadership is key. And so we wanted to revise, our job description hasn't been revised in a long time, and so we really wanted to meet what is the new California standards for for administrators, and also highlighting the focus of instructional leadership. There hasn't been a huge change. It's just we're emphasizing certain things more. And so we've shared this with our principals, our leadership. They've given us feedback on this. And we'll be working through, if this is approved, we'll be working with our principals to help support them in this process as well, so that they focus more on getting into the classrooms, providing feedback to teachers, and ensuring that our students, more students are learning more. And that's really critical, and that's going to, why we're here and why we do what we do. And having every part of our organization focusing on this is important. So we've revised this job description, and we are hoping that the board, we recommend it for approval and hope the board agrees.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Kulik. All right, if there's any discussions or questions on the job description, I just want to say a brief comment with thank you for restructuring, again, like going through job descriptions especially, because, that's what gets posted on EdJoin. People think that's the job they're going to get, and actually I think a lot of us need to be focusing more on what are within our job parameters, and I would also hope that our supervisors are also remembering what's in the job description and really saying, focus on the job description, and, try not to ask too much outside of that, because that's where it gets bogged down. So I'd like to appreciate that we are focusing on instruction. But yes, this action does need either comments or questions, and actually, really quick question. Of the things that were eliminated for our public who can't see it, were there any big strikeouts?
It's really moving away from being a manager of the school site to being an instructional leader, so focusing on instruction. And so you're going to see some changes in the school site. You're not going to see the principals, out on the schoolyard all day long. You're going to see them in the classrooms more. That's what we want. We want them in the classrooms. We want them supporting, having these conversations with staff, and their leadership is focused on instruction. And so, it may be that they need they're going to look at how to manage their time better, and there may be things that we need to remove from their plate so that they can focus on instructional practice. We actually just talked about removing adjunct duties, that they don't have to do those anymore, so that they can focus on, and that's going to put a little bit more on the district office, so that they can focus in being in the classroom. So we're looking at, this is a focus that we want district-wide so that we can improve student learning outcomes, and we're going to do what we can to remove barriers for our principals so that they can support this work, because they want to. This is important to them too, but they get bogged down with a lot of the management of a school site, and so how can we support them so that we can remove some of those areas that are maybe, take up a lot of your time but are a lower priority.
That makes perfect sense to me. Can you please clarify for me what exactly are adjunct duties?
Sorry, adjunct duty, for example, Student of the Year. We just had that. That was a principal that coordinated that. So now Ms. Covere is going to take that on for us. Thank you, Ms. Covere. So as an example, the art fair, the spelling bee, the science fair, STEM fair. So all of those areas, we're going to look at, other folks that can help support those, or maybe we need to think about, is this really a priority? Maybe we do something different and don't need to do it that way. Just because it's always been doesn't mean that's how it should be.
And then I guess a follow-up question that I had now that we're talking about principals, hopefully that means that the assistant, I know that we only have four schools with assistant principals, 3 schools, but hopefully we'll take a look at that job description and see if that aligns with the new principal description.
We can look at that. They are more focused on the student services side, and so I don't know if that's going to change as much, but we can look at those.
Sounds good. Yeah, of course.
You mentioned standing out on the yard and whatnot for principals. Can you give us a more concrete example of maybe like the most or the most common feedback that you're getting from principals about something that they're doing that could be taken off their plate that would allow them to be more of an instructional leader?
I'm trying to think of an example. I don't know. We have a principal in the audience, but I don't want to put him on the spot.
Not trying to get you in an aha moment or anything, but
Yeah.
I got you.
We
I can just share that we've had 2 meetings with our admin team to discuss what are those areas that could be streamlined or reduced or dispersed. So they have given us really good feedback, and I appreciate Superintendent McCulloch really listening and really adjusting to their recommendations. And when she presented it at our last administrator meeting, there's a lot of smiles and just relief and note and recognition that they've been heard, and that we're working in partnership with everyone to really reduce the load so that their work truly is going to be focused on student learning as much as possible. Can't think of any.
All right, thank you so much for your information. So again, this is still an action item. We still do need a motion and a second if we want to move forward with it.
Motion to approve.
Second. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, we look forward to hearing what your team discusses. All right, and we move on to item 10A, February 2026 CSBA Board Policy Updates and BP Board Policy 5131.8 Mobile Communication Devices, second reading. The board will review and revise board policies, administrative regulations, board bylaws from February 2026 CSBA Board Policy Updates, as well as Board Policy 5131.8 Mobile Communication Devices as stated in a second reading. Are there any comments or questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
To the president, if I may make one
sorry,
comment.
yes.
I'll let you say your comment, actually, but I just wanted to, because this will be a change in board meetings. One of the items is having one meeting a month, and doing it the second Wednesday of the month, having June, having two meetings, and that is the July one moves to June. So I just want to make sure that that is brought forefront, because if you approve this tonight, that does change the meetings, and at the next meeting, we'll bring back the calendar. So I just wanted to highlight that so that you can decide, is that really what you want to do? And then I'll leave.
Thank you. We'll go to Vice President Rashba.
Okay, so my comment is strictly related to the policy on mobile communication devices. And I really come to this as also a parent of a student at Westmore High School, which next year is going to secure student cell phones and all electronic devices in a secure Yonder bag for the day. And, looked at this in depth, took that decision after Terra Nova High School, piloted this program last year. And it's just something that I've been thinking a lot of. There are many studies out there highlighting the tremendous distractions that our young people are subject to, that affects their learning, certainly, and affects their socialization. And, it always breaks my heart to go into a lunchroom and see, students just on their device rather than interacting, with each other. So, I looked at this policy and I see the first paragraph as sending a mixed message from the board's position. And my proposal would be to strike that first paragraph and start with the part that's after currently option 2, which really states that smartphones are not allowed in our schools, not allowed in our schools. And then it goes on to give a number of stipulations that principals and teachers that they might give under certain circumstances, such as an emergency, but also, when a teacher or administrator grants permission for a learning accommodation or for something that they are doing in class. That does happen occasionally. So there are, after that, a number of allowances. But the paragraph that I would move to eliminate reads that the governing board recognizes that student use of smartphones and other mobile communication devices on campus may be beneficial to student learning and well-being and could be harmful and disruptive of the instructional program in some circumstances. When on campus or when under the supervision of district employees, students may use smartphones and other mobile communication devices only as permitted under this policy. To me, that sends a mixed message. I would recommend starting with students shall not use smartphones or other mobile communication devices while at a school site or under the supervision and control of a district employee. I would add to that during school hours at some point, because the one area where I know that parents would be concerned of wanting students to have access to their phone would be during pickup times. And so I do think that stating during school hours is an important stipulation.
If I may add, and again, however, I do agree with everything you said. I will say the couple of examples of things where that may pose issues, and again, district cabinet, please chime in if you have any understanding on it, but it's language and health related, because we have students who need their devices potentially for language communication purposes, translation. We have students who have diabetes or other health needs who need to have their devices, and a lot of those devices are switching to smartphones because they're just easier. For example, my partner actually is deaf, hard of hearing, uses their phone to adjust their hearing aids. So I'm just like, is this a big,
It's
cabinet?
included actually down below with the, it says, however, a student shall not be prohibited from possessing or using a mobile communication device under any of the following circumstances. So then it says when a teacher or administrator grants permission, and so on. And then when a licensed physician or surgeon determines that the possession or use is necessary for the health and well-being, so for your example. So it's in this policy for those exceptions, and so I think that fits in what you're saying.
Cool, then, yeah, go ahead. You were about to say something.
I mean, I think that these reasonable accommodations are allowed, but I believe as a district that we really want to set the tone that phones are not allowed, during the school day. There have been studies showing that even if students aren't using them, just the presence of phones can very much distract them in class.
I think adding during school hours, because when you first started, you're saying phones are not allowed. I'm like, so I leave them at home, they leave them at home, or like, what does that mean by not allowed? And so if the terminology not allowed is actually in there, then it needs to be changed to like allowed but not. The school hours thing is, I think, what would fix that to your point. But at first, the whole not allowed, I was like, where do they? What, do you leave it at home? And then that would mess up the whole thing if you need it, or if it's after school hours and you need to get picked up. But would agree if there is something that just says during school hours. And also, what is a yonder bag?
It's a little cell phone bag where actually, maybe you all might know better. how
It's
to
like a
describe 'em.
secure
Yeah.
pouch where the student, and you see it typically more in high schools. The student has a pouch that is designated for them. They have to put their phone inside, and there's a magnetic strip that locks it, and it is controlled by a device that the administration has. So kids cannot open it or use their phone. It kind of secures it into this pouch that they carry with them, so they keep their phones with them, but they're not able to access them or open them unless they're unlocked. And is that correct, Trustee Rashba, from what you understand?
Yes,
Okay.
and.
I haven't used them myself, but that's
I
what I
didn't know
understand.
how they unlocked. I know what they are.
It's through, there's like a device or a mechanism
Got it,
that
okay.
that an administrator has
Do
to
you-
unlock. it.
Like individually, or is it just like press a button and they all unlock? Because that feels very
I-
time consuming.
I think it's individually, but I'm not sure.
It
Yeah.
is individual.
And to be clear, that is not, what we're proposing in this district, but it is
Okay.
going to be enacted at the high school level, at least at Westmore.
Got it. So it's like for our district, they can just walk into class and put it in a bucket next to the door, like dinner table or something.
No, they would just keep it in their backpack, turned off if it happened. It's classroom management for the teacher. It's really just put it away because they sometimes, families do want their child to have a phone walking to and from school for safety reasons, so we understand that. But then it has no place in the classroom unless it is, a teacher says, they're doing an activity and they can scan a QR code or something like that to do a lesson, but it should be put away in the classroom. I've seen it where they have the, like the shoe horn kind of thing where you stick it in, but then it's also, there's an issue with it's personal property, someone could take it. So you want to make sure you're careful with that as well.
The policy does say, there's one point where it says, it talks about possessing or using, but that's in the allowances. It just says it would start with students shall not use smartphones, but they can possess them.
All right, Trustee Jordan, you were. Sorry,
Yeah,
thank you,
so I guess I'm confused. So I agree with all the statements that were made. I am confused though, because it says prohibited. Prohibited means not allowed at all. And then it says shall not use. So I feel like that's contradictory already, number one.
Yep.
So I feel like we may need to remove the word prohibited because I don't feel like it is prohibited.
Where it says option 2 prohibit, that actually would be struck out. That's really a note
Okay.
us that there's
Okay,
one
good to
option and a
know.
second option, so we would remove
Okay, so
where it says
perfect,
option
thank you.
2.
So then the other part that I'm confused about is it says shall not use smartphones and mobile devices, and I'm not gonna say the while at school, but it says are under the supervision and control of a district employee. I guess I'm confused by that, because you're saying so they can't use it under the supervision of a district employee, even though in the 2 it says
Yeah.
when a teacher. So that feel like that's also contradictory, because technically we're saying that when they are given permission under supervision, they can, but then it says that they shall not at the top.
Yeah, what they're saying is you shall not use smartphones or other while at school, and I think the conversation is to add during school hours. And
that's
then-
not the part
but then I think
Okay.
what they're saying is, or under the supervision and control of district employees. So it is kind of an awkwardly worded sentence,
Yeah.
but it means that you can use it under the control of a district employee or under the supervision of.
I would recommend rewording the entire sentence to say, students shall not use smartphones or other mobile communication devices while at school during school hours, period.
Period.
And I was wondering if the district employee part was to reflect after-school programs, So, it gets a little tricky with during school hours, how we would exactly want to word that.
And can't that be moved to the bottom, to like one of like the bullets at the bottom where it's like medical or blah, 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 and then that just
and
be.
after-school
Yeah, like all of these
programs.
things, like to Trustee Jordan's point, like, don't use it during school hours, period. Obviously said it in a better way, unless, and there's the 5, whatever it is, unless it's district or teacher or whoever discretion, unless it's medically, unless it's, an emergency, and it's just there. So the overarching thing is, doesn't have a place in the classroom. These are the only exceptions, and then it's one succinct, not confusing, and then it's clear that if it is not among these 5 exceptions, put your phone away.
I believe the after-school program could be encompassed in number 2, where it says when a teacher or administrator grants permission. So maybe we could say when a teacher, administrator, or after-school program staff.
Should we say just district employee?
Yeah, and
Well, they're
I'm
not
saying-
district employees in the after-school program.
I'd want to set the expectation that they are not to use smartphones during after-school programs. Obviously, if there is an allowance, we have that built in, but I think we more want to protect the right of a district employee to tell students to put their phones away during activities.
So I agree, I think because they do use them in the after-school programs, and the after-school programs are not district employees, so and so what are their policies? Do we need to have, so I don't even know if we should tackle that, because we need to
Yes.
have
This is district policy, and so
Yeah.
the after-school, even though they do have to follow a lot of our policies, but the after-school programs has their own
Yeah.
requirements.
Thank you for specifying that. Let's not tackle something that's not our jurisdiction.
So you guys are going way into the details, but I don't agree with this. So can I talk now? Okay. So I'll just start off by saying, to make it easier, I think that this should be, if there are some feelings that we have or changes you think that should be made, I think this should be something that the principals have the option to create the policy at their school. And the reason why I say that is because I've been on both sides of the coin. I've been in the classroom with cell phones, in the classroom without cell phones, and it's not the cell phone that's the problem, right? And then you kind of touched on it, Trustee Jordan. If we're saying it's prohibited, but you shall not use, it's confusing. So I think that by us just upfront saying you can't do it, you can't have it at school, I don't think that that's I don't really think that that's our place. Just honestly, I feel like that's a slight bit of micromanagement, and it sounds like we need to take a step back and have more discussion. These are kind of philosophical things you all are bringing up. We're telling parents we don't want you to have the phone, but we're not telling them, we're not even asking them, why are you giving them a phone? And we're just assuming that they have to have it for safety. That's an assumption. I don't agree with that. And I also know that the phones can be used as a tool, whether it's during school or after school. So that's going to it could set up problems, So I think that some of these policies are well intended, like even the pouches and whatnot, but I've seen it work and I've seen it not work. All that being said, I'm at a school right now as a long-term sub where they don't use cell phones in the classroom at all, and it has not been an issue. There's just a sign in the room that says no class, no phones will be used during class. But if we as a district say, you can't use it during school, but we're still allowing them to bring it to school, then we're setting up the cat and mouse game. We're putting some administrators and some teachers in a bad situation where maybe they don't care about it, but now they're being forced to enforce that, and then the students are sneaking, So at some point, and I'm going to stop, but at some point we need to talk to the parents and ask them these questions like, do they have to have a phone? Why do they have it? Right? And then, do we want to have a community of students who only just do what we tell them to do, or do we want them to have critical thinking and have choices and discipline and delayed gratification? Right? If you have a phone, please don't use it to the end of school, or something like that, as opposed to, I'm going to give it to you, but you better not use it.
Well, I think part of it is that, and part of it is in here, if there's a teacher who doesn't want to have that battle, I think they have the choice to not have that battle. It says in teacher discretion. So like if they're.
So why are we change it then?
Well, I think we're just changing certain phrasing. I don't think we're changing the policy as a whole. I think we still agree with that we do not want them to have phones on, out at school during hours. And I think
If I
Superintendent
may,
McCoy, you
yeah.
wanted to.
So this policy was shared, and there were two options. And it was shared with the Parent Involvement Advisory Committee. It was shared with staff. It was shared with, and our district team. So this was what it was agreed upon. Also, we want to make sure that we have to approve this policy by June 30th because that is a law that you need to have this updated. So there is a time constraint with approving this policy. So I was going to recommend that if you wanted to table it and approve all the others, bring this back to the next meeting, but just to keep in mind, though, we do need to approve it by the end of June, just in case you do want to have more discussion. But this has been reviewed by staff and families, and this is what was recommended as to move forward, just to provide some information.
Two things. Number one, thank you, Trustee Ali, for your thoughts, because I have similar thoughts in that, honestly. Again, I'm older, so I grew up, I didn't have a cell phone until I was, out of high school. So I don't really see the need, but I do I think it's the cat and mouse that you were talking about with, it's kind of like the statement of like when you try to stop kids from doing things, they sneak and do it. And so I to definitely see your point as a parent of two children, one who has a cell phone and one who does not have a cell phone. I will say that even as a parent, it's a struggle in this day and age when when their peers have it, and then they're using it regardless, even if they don't have one. And so I do agree that us maybe putting a policy out, and it depends on how we administer the policy, I guess, is the other thing. I do think that it could become a negative or possibly put us in a situation where we are policing our children when really we want them to just have good habits. Please focus in class. And I know this because I had a child in high school. They did not have that. And a lot of the kids with the long hair, AirPods, you can't see. You don't know. They're on, you wouldn't even know they're on the phone. But you've done this policy, and so they're going to do it regardless. And so it's like, as the adults in the area, how are we helping them make good decisions? And it's not by stamping and saying, you must do this. It's about showing and proving the importance of focusing, paying attention in class, and not wanting to sneak to do things. And unfortunately, when children hit a certain age, and I'm speaking as a parent, they will sneak and do things. That's just, we all were teenagers at one point. That's kind of what they do. So how do we administer this in a way, or word this in a way that showcases what we talk about on our, and that's not on here anymore, that we're focusing on the best interest of our students, but showcasing the reason why we care about you is creating policies that enable you to be successful in your education while at school. And I think that's the thought process that I'm thinking. Then I also appreciate you, Superintendent Mikulik, for saying that you did bring this to the parents. And now maybe it's a conversation when we do our parent talks, like, and I think we have done like one on social media and right, but like how do we it seems like it needs to be consistent, because some parents, it is about safety. Oh, I don't want my kid walking from one place to another. Some parents, it's about, well, I don't want to argue with my kids. Their friends have it, so I just don't want to argue, so I'm just going to give them the phone, right? Every parent is different, and so it seems like it's a community problem. It's not a school problem. We can only set up policies to guide them, but we can't truly enforce them if they're going to be in their backpacks, is what I'm saying.
And if sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I may add too, when we were talking about the principal duties, this enforcement would be a duty that is taking away from instructional practices. And so is that something we want to enforce our principals to have to follow up with? A student is going to use their phone anyway, and just as a thought, because it is a management of enforcement too. And if we're trying to focus on instructional leadership, this is something that would take away from that. So when that just made me think about that question earlier.
So, I think that the discussion here would not fundamentally change our policy. It would clarify, in my opinion, the policy to say that cell phone use is not allowed during class, during school hours, with certain stipulations that are allowed. I agree that we cannot, legislate whether students are going to have a phone, bring a phone. That really is the jurisdiction of parents, and they're clearly deciding that students should, have phones. We are also not going to sit here and tell principals how to, police this policy. In my mind, what we're actually doing is clarifying the standards of our classroom and actually assisting students and assisting teachers and assisting principals to help them focus on instructional leadership. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I can't tell you the number who say that they waste a tremendous amount of time telling students to put their phones away. And if we want principals to focus on instructional leadership, I completely agree that they should. Then setting an expectation, I think a reasonable expectation as a district, that students should not be using their phones during class is helpful and reasonable. So my intention is really not to change the policy, it was to clarify it.
All right, so then I'll let Assistant Superintendent Scott go, then I have a comment after, or a question actually.
So I just want to clarify that it is currently the policy that they can't use it at school in classrooms, so, but it is still an issue, right? So it is about management and communication, and it does take teacher time, administrator time, whenever we have any rule or policy to enforce it, because if you don't enforce it, it doesn't matter if it's a rule or a policy. But it is currently our policy, our practice, not to allow students to use their devices on campus.
And then Superintendent Mikulik, we are updating this because we legally have to, but
There's a new law,
there's a new law.
But this policy is the same as what we had. We just needed to make sure that we had stakeholder input, and so we're just asking to approve. But this is not different than the policy we currently have.
Okay, so then if I may, I'm going to put a motion on the table. I would like to motion to approve, but we'll table just that policy to the next one. Sounds like we want to have more discussion on it. I don't know if I don't know if that's what the rest of the board agrees with.
I don't need more discussion. I'm just saying, why are we striking the whole first paragraph?
Well, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I would say I
That's
agree
all.
with striking the whole first paragraph because, to be honest with you, I don't, well, and again, we are a board, but if I speak for myself on the board, I don't know if I, as a part of the governing board, see it as a beneficial to learning. It says learning. And I'm like, I don't know how a cell phone is beneficial to learning, and why, as a board, are we saying that? Are we saying that it's, and if that's what you guys want to say, then cool, but then now we got to go back to the roll call vote, because I don't agree with that statement.
Assistant Superintendent Scott, then. Did you?
I remember back in the day before we had one-to-one devices, a lot of the kids had phones, and so I don't know if this policy was put in place before we had such access to devices, but I know a lot of the teachers back in the day would allow students to use their phone because that was the only device that they had.
I can speak to that in defense of a lot of students with so-called disabilities. That's like a basic accommodation for a lot of them, is that they can take a picture of what's on the board, on the screen. I mean, there's obviously a lot of learning applications in technology. See, what we're talking about now, are we talking about a phone or a computer? Because we put $1,000 computers in students' hands and we're calling it a phone. So that's what I'm saying. Some of these discussions we're having are philosophical. I'm just against us striking the whole first paragraph and taking this out of the control of the principals. There might be a principal that wants to say that policy, and I think they should be allowed to, but I think principals who don't want it and teachers who do utilize phones in the classroom for learning should be able to do it without there being confusion.
Can I just speak to that then? Because it says smartphones and other mobile, which is it's a phone.
iPads.
Well, I guess iPads, but I guess
Chromebooks are technically
Chromebooks.
also
I mean,
mobile.
it's
Actually, yeah,
mobile
what is defined
communication,
as
is a
mobile?
Chromebook a mobile communication?
Well, yeah, what would you define
yes,
as?
it's mobile.
So yes, so she's saying yes.
Okay.
That is a mobile communication device.
So I guess
iPads too.
the reason why I don't agree with it, I think for a variety of reasons, the ChatGPT is available now. There's all of these things that students could be using, and that is removing their critical thinking, which you mentioned earlier. So I understand from students with disabilities are absolutely needing it, but I feel like that's in the bullet points too. So I feel like it's a little redundant also at the top, is my feeling.
Okay, so can we read that paragraph that we're striking, just so everyone can hear it?
Superintendent McCullough, could you read the first
Sure.
paragraph first, please?
The governing board recognizes that student use of smartphones and other mobile communication devices on campus may be beneficial to student learning and well-being, and could be harmful and disruptive of the instructional program in some circumstances. When on campus or when under the supervision of district employees, students may use smartphones or other mobile communication devices only as permitted under this policy. And mobile communication could mean smartwatches as well.
Yes, that's also true. Trustee Policarpio?
I just think it's too many words. Like, it's not, I personally, I don't think it's necessary. What I'm hearing out of that is no smartphones or whatever it is, and maybe we don't put Chromebooks under whatever that is, and maybe there's a language there. But what I hear is no smartphones during school hours, if we change that or whatever, unless A, B, C, D, E.
So just to clarify, this is the policy that is recommended by California School Board Association. It has been vetted by their legal team to protect school boards. And so that's why we usually go with the language that is recommended, because they have vetted it and made sure that it covers everything and we're not limiting ourselves. I just want to point that out. You are always free to update your policies as long as it doesn't violate law. But we may want to consider sticking with the language that is recommended by California School Board Association. And I may have misspoke about the other mobile communication devices. I think they actually really just mean smartwatches, not necessarily Chromebooks, even though technically you can chat with someone in a Chromebook, but I think what the intent of this is, yeah, and it's mobile, but the intent is smartwatches, because it could be another device that is similar to, or that is going to be created, we don't know, in, glasses, Google glasses, et cetera.
So I guess a question that I had is, I guess based on the legal thing, what is that first paragraph legally going to harm us if it's repeating kind of, it sounds like it's already in the rest of it. So it's like, what is that first
It's
paragraph?
an introduction to the policy. It's really up to you all. I just want to be mindful of, we do have closed session.
Yes.
And so we're already at almost 9:30. So if we want to do a motion and a vote on this, or if we want to table this for the next meeting, but we do need to have it voted on before June 24th meeting, so either the June 10th or June 24th, I would recommend that we move on from this agenda item, so either make a motion or et cetera.
Well, I think I did make a motion, so I guess no one seconded.
You made a motion?
Yes.
But I guess on the other item, like, which is the one meeting a month, and then that part, I guess I'm not also sure, like, because that one meeting a month could elongate our meetings, and we're already having a long meeting now, so what does that look like? And so we're like, oh, let's approve it, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that either.
So you can make a motion to pull those two, so that for tonight, we can move on and approve all the others, and then bring the two specific ones back to the next meeting.
Yeah, I want to say that I will unfortunately need to miss the next meeting due to family obligations, but I certainly trust all of you to make an informed decision, and, you know, so I'm certainly comfortable tabling that one item on mobile communications or the two items and moving forward with the rest. I would ask you, Superintendent McCulick, to just inquire what value that the opening paragraph provides in terms of, you know, covering bases. But when it's read, especially the first part, I am uncomfortable with it. It does sound like really an endorsement of, you know, smartphone use in school, and in my mind is confusing and not necessary.
And then on the note about moving to one meeting a month, so that's been more of a discussion that I know the trustee Vice President Rashba, Superintendent McCullough, and I have been having kind of during our planning meetings, especially over the past 2 years, just with what's been on our agendas. We'd rather have one meeting where we're actually doing really intentional work and having robust discussions, rather than having two meetings where we're required to be here for an hour and a half. And not saying that those meetings are not important, we're not having some of those discussions. It's more trying to, I think, more focus, where is our time going? And again, it seems like we do get just as much done. It's kind of like the studies that they're doing on 4-day work weeks, where they're actually seeing that people are doing just as much work in a 4-day work week as they do in a 5. It's just, you know, where are you being more intentional about your time? Now, you're working more during those times. But yeah, so I mean, but I guess it really goes.
Yeah, I guess my statement on that is I don't disagree. I understand the whole 4-day work week thing. I also understand consolidation of meetings. I guess I would need to see the numbers on how often we do very short meetings. I don't feel like they're that often. And so if we do 2 short meetings a year and we move to 1 meeting per month, my concern is, and this was supposed to be somewhat of a short meeting if Drea did not have all these questions, but I feel like I'm concerned that we may put ourselves in a bind, and then it would also require us to rush through my favorite part of our meetings, which is students and their attendance, because most of those type of meetings, which is majority of our meetings, I feel like maybe the first meeting of the year we don't do it, probably don't do it in the last meetings of the year because school is kind of out. So maybe 3 meetings a year is short, and then the rest of the time we're here for 6 hours. I just feel like I'm concerned about that. So I guess what I'm saying is we table it, because I don't think it's a straight 1 meeting a month. I think maybe it's a conversation around, depending on the agenda, we put a notice out and we say this month we're going to cancel and only have 1 meeting because of the length of the agenda, versus just automatically having 1 meeting a month. That would be my recommendation.
So this seems like a bigger discussion, and we mentioned it, we talked about it last time, and I know you were unable to make last time. We do have about half our meetings are once a month. We canceled the February one. We are going to have 1 in August, 1 in November, 1 in December, 1 in January, 1 in April. So we already and then we don't have 1 in July. So about half our meetings are already. And we're also thinking about next year, we're going to be having a lot more meetings with this committee. And so that was kind of a big precipice of why we had this conversation. But I recommend that we discuss this at a next meeting, just for the sake of time.
Yeah, I move that we table this to the next meeting.
If the board feels comfortable with it, and I was the one that wasn't here, then I am fine, and I trust you guys. I wasn't here, so I did not get those stats. So if that's how the board wants to move, I'm happy to move forward with just tabling this.
And just also, just one last thing before the motion goes forward is on top of student presentations, we know that another discussion that we were having was not like, instead of requiring the schools to present, like we still want student presentations and especially student projects and like things like that. But like the school presentations, like you know how every school comes and presents to us?
The SIPSAs?
Yeah, the SIPSAs. So we want to actually reduce those to make them, so that's one of the things, yeah, exactly, because sometimes we have 3 or 4 on an agenda, and so that's one of the discussions Superintendent Kulik, Vice President Rashba, and I have been having is that really, not that we don't want to hear those things, but is that the most appropriate use of our time when we have important things? And we want to hear from these programs, like we want to hear from Youth Cinema Project to come and present to us, like what are they doing? We want to hear from those programs. So that's one of the discussions, not that we would have less student things, but we want to also give them like, when they come, it's intentional. And like they're presenting on something that's, not just, oh, look at what our school's doing, we're great. It's like a specific program, so.
And that's another thing to remove from the principal's plate, not having to do a board presentation
Yes.
every year, but doing it every other year, every couple of years, and then just limiting, having one student presentation a meeting, when, like in the summer, we don't, but that way it would just allow more time for discussions.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Again, I didn't get that data last time or hear that feedback, so I appreciate the transparency. So if we are comfortable with that, I am happy to move forward. I know that you did not do this intentionally, but I know you were saying look at the time, and I understand we should be on time check, right? But these are our meetings, and when you said that, and then you're like, oh, well, we need to move on, and then it's like the one meeting a month. I'm just thinking like, well, then does that stop me from having to ask the questions that I want? Mind you, I didn't have any of these questions beforehand because I didn't get these presentations. So now I have all of these questions, and I feel like now I'm being tied to, oh no, we got to move on, and I don't want it to always be rushed if we move to a one meeting a month is essentially the reason why I reacted that
And
way.
actually, I agree with that, which is also why I think we moved to one meeting a month. This is a personal thing. Of course, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I would be willing to put more time into that once a month if we are here longer, because then we get more done, but we're doing it all at once. So that's another flip side, I think. That's why I'm not stopping us. And, as you said, these are our meetings. So as much as I also like being on time usually, I do think that this conversation was important for us to have, which is why I'm not stopping us, and I want us to actually have these discussions. Again, we do have things we have to do, and, we're going to get here a little later than we planned. But again, I think these are important, these discussions are important to have. But that's also why we want to be transparent with you, because, you weren't here for last meetings, and you're now having to make a decision with the rest of us. But anyway, but just to be clear, so right now, my motion's still on the table to table the first item.
Second.
Just the first one. Okay, so
Just for clarity, you're talking about Board Policy 5131.8, mobile communication devices.
that is correct. So now we have a
Yes.
motion and we have a second. I think we could do a voice vote for this one. Yeah. All right, so then, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
So
Motion
for
passes.
clarity, you approved all the other board policies except tabling 5131.8. Okay.
So that means we did approve, moving one to one meeting a month. And again, of course, this means that we can still call a special meeting if we need to. So this is definitely not saying if we have a bunch of stuff, we're gonna be here till 2 a.m. Although I will say, just from working in districts and especially being at CSBA, we are very fortunate, I think, that we collaborate the way that we do. I feel like our meetings are very efficient. There are board meetings that regularly go till 1 or 2 a.m. And that's a normal thing. And when they go to 3 or 4, they are lucky. That's including closed session. So I do want to say, not saying we should be comparing, but I do think that we are in a very good place, and I actually really appreciate our board. So you'll learn that as you continue on. Yeah, exactly. We won't name districts, but no, you're good. Your mic wasn't on. But anyway, all right. So we are now going to move on to, item 11, governance team member comments, reports, future agenda items, board meeting reflection. And I think last time I was right, so I think I will start on my left this time.
No comments, but I appreciate you all.
I think we did a great job of keeping our focus on the best interests of our students. Thank you.
Yeah, this was a really, robust discussion, longer meeting as is stated than is normal. But to your point, President Sujisaka, I really respect, the way that our board is able to discuss different sides of the issue openly, and we've had just some disagreement tonight. I think that's a good and healthy thing. We do it with respect and to try to achieve the best outcomes we can, and I'm confident that we did that tonight.
I actually just want to thank the board for allowing me to be my passionate self and ask all the questions that I have. In the vein of being true to our students and focusing on them, I think us showing disagreement but coming to an agreement, I think, is so important, not just for us but also for our viewers and for the students to know that it's okay not to agree. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to get clarification and understand before you make a decision. We live in a world where people are fearful of conflict, and I feel like that fear causes us to make bad decisions. And so I actually embrace, and not negative conflict, but conflict that allows you to think beyond just agreeing to agree. I think it's important for us to move forward that way, and I appreciate us being able to move through that and still get to what we needed to, again, in the best interest for our students. So looking forward to one meeting a month, and I appreciate all of the feedback that we got today about the Superintendent Advisory Committee, and I'm actually looking forward to the next committee, and I would like to put my name in the hat.
Sorry, what were you?
If it is a superintendent advisory committee, then there would be board representation on it.
Usually two.
As to sit on the way that, I thought, okay, I was like, that's why I got kicked out, but got it. Got it.
You can have a max. You can't
Clarifying
have a majority
question.
of the
Got it,
board
got it,
on
got
a
it.
committee.
I'm here,
So,
guys, I'm here.
No, good question. I want to thank the board for this. So in my entire time on this board, this is the first time I've ever had a 3-2 vote, and actually I really appreciate the discussion we had about it. Actually, you kind of just took the words right out of my mouth. I really appreciate that we can challenge each other, but at the end of the day, we're still smiling like we're not going to hate each other outside this meeting. And then also, because there are boards that do that. There are boards that absolutely despise each other and despise their cabinet and despise everybody who talks to them. And I really appreciate that I feel like we're the exact opposite board of that, which we respect our community, we respect the people who work with us, and we respect each other, which is the number one thing. And then, darn, I had another thing to say, but I'm not going to say it because I forgot what it was. So, with that being said, we move to item 12, persons wishing to address the board on closed session items. Ms. Covere, do we have any speaker cards?
We don't. No.
Thank you. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment on or address the board on an item addressed in closed session. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is usually 2 minutes. We will close that at 9:42 p.m. And then we are going to take a recess for 5 minutes and at 9:42 and meet to close session at 9:47.